up, and welcome back to the Section 10 Podcast, episode 495, presented by Underdog Fantasy. It is the home of your 61-55 third place Boston Red Sox. My name is Jared Carabas, and I am a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Coley Mick, and he's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Tyler Milliken, and he killed his dog Bullet, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, realest guys in the room. Tyler, how you doing?
Ooh, what up, Section 10 in the building.
That wasn't bad.
That was all right. You know what? That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. He squeaked a little bit. He squeaked in the motherfucking building, presented by Blue Moon.
Suck one.
Wait. You know what? Suspend me. I earned that. I don't know what I just did there. I jumped way too early. I'm rusty.
This guy thinks he has all the lines now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's not here. He thinks he got all the lines.
We're talking Nuttown. Come on.
All right.
Produced by Jake Yazzie.
Fuck yeah.
All right, Jake. We do have not one, but two very special guests of SoxProspects.com. You know them, you love them. You guys put it. First of all, it's Chris Hatfield, it's Ian Cundall. You guys punted on doing your podcast tonight, or you're doing it? You did it some before. Did you do half and half?
We might do more later. We were going to do it before, but then we realized we had to get some technical issues figured out to be able to do the 10. And so we prioritized because, you know, when you get invited back after 9 years, setting the record
been a long time
between episodes of Section 10. I don't know if Tyler was born yet when I was on for the first time.
So Tyler, the last time that you were on, Chris, Tyler was busy getting fired from Bernie and Phil's or something, Jordan's Furniture, there's some furniture store, because I think we had you on to break down the quality of the prospects that were getting traded in the Kimbrel deal. Was that?
Yeah.
The timeline?
You were in Pete's basement still.
Yes. So that was a phoner. We didn't even see you for that.
No, and it's funny if anyone actually can go back and listen to it, which I don't even know if you can at this point. Just to show how far we've come, I was in like a 700 square foot apartment, had no idea how long we were going to go for, and you can hear my wife starting to make breakfast in the background because she was sitting waiting for me. So, yeah.
We did that in the morning?
Yeah, on a weekend. And actually, we did. You had to go wake Pete up. So this is before Pat ever slept through anything.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't remember any type of morning content. I mean, that's pretty insane. But Ian was like, listen, my laptop doesn't work with the platform that you guys use. Where did you go and how are you facilitating this deal right now?
I drove over to my parents' house because I live very close to them. So thankfully they have a Mac, the old Mac, or I guess it's a new Mac, but desktop that has the newest Google Chrome, which my laptop cannot support because Apple loves to stop you from make you buy a new computer.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm in the Amazon, but we're here.
We are here. This has been years in the making to have you both on at the same time. The Red Sox baseball gods have smiled down upon us today. I know the Red Sox got swept by the Houston Astros. We'll probably spend 6 to 8 minutes on that later on in the program.
Maybe.
But today is a big day, and we had planned for you guys to come on this episode anyway. Yes. And it just so happened that today was the day that the Holy Trinity was promoted to Worcester. Like, what timing? And we'll get into that in just a second. But first, the MLB season is in full swing, and Underdog Fantasy wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats, strikeouts, total bases, home runs, and so much more. Make entries of all baseball or mix and match across your other favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Coley, how well did you do with the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team and the Sox at the same time?
Oh, I mean, I was taking Lucas Sims lower 0.5 runs and Tatum higher 10.5 minutes. So I am a billionaire.
Oh, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. Mm-hmm. That's what you got to do. And sign up with the promo code Jared. That's Jared to get up to $250 in bonus cash and a special pick on Underdog. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Jared. Very special day. I know, Tyler, like these guys are your gods. Like they are celebrities to, like, this is like doing a podcast with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon to you.
Yes. You know, we do talk about my support for 310 to left a lot, but really Sox Prospects podcast. I think anyone who's ever heard me talk, I champion them all the time. The first show I ever hosted at the Sports Hub, I had to ask Ian to come on because I felt like it was kind of the perfect setup. So yeah, this is a dream.
It's big time. It's big time. All right, shall we begin?
Down on the farm, we'll be drinking Eddie's goat milk. Down on the farm. Wake up the kids, tell your mom, talking Red Sox prospects down on the farm.
Down on the farm, brought to you by Eddie's Goat Milk. Get it in ya. Haven't done this segment in years, literal years.
Why is that song so long?
That's a good song.
You were very excited to show us, Jared. I thought you were going to be singing.
No, out of the three songs that I've made for segments, that's power rank number 3.
Wow.
The Steve's Weather song. Oh my God. I wish there was a full length version of the Steve's Weather song. And then there's also one for Stop and Shop.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll get there. But first and foremost, gentlemen, your reactions to Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teel, Roman Anthony getting the call together as one.
Ian, I'm interested. You were texting about this earlier, and I'm wondering where you wound up falling on this. Because you had some interesting thoughts.
I think it's very exciting that they got promoted at the same time. I think that's the Red Sox keeping them together makes a lot of sense because this is the future of your team. And, you know, they all had been performing well. Meyer obviously had been a little hurt lately, but get them up to Worcester, get the fans, get them closer to Fenway. Let's see what they've got over the next month. It doesn't really change anything in terms of their timeline in getting to Fenway. I think next year they all would have started in Worcester anyway, but why not? I mean, there's nothing really left to learn at AA right now, especially with the caliber of competition up there being basically high A baseball. So why not? Let's have some fun and let's create the best AAA team in the world because, I mean, you basically have an MLB team down there right now with Tristan Casas, Vaughn Grissom, and everyone else. So why not make it a little
Bobby
better?
Dahlbeck.
It's like exactly. It's like the trade deadline for Worcester. They got their big additions.
Bobby Dahlbeck.
Leading the team in home runs, I believe. Hit another one today. So yeah, it's a very good team. Do they sell out? They must sell out over there, right? How do they do for attendance? Because I'm expecting like the trio's first game to be a complete sellout.
It's always packed whenever I go there.
Yeah, they draw.
They do really well.
They draw. Yeah, I mean,
their
affiliates all draw pretty well. Other than like Salem kind of doesn't because it's kind of more in a rural area, but like the other 3 all draw really, really well. So
okay.
You know, they're all in good locations too.
I'm going to let Tyler and Coley take the wheel on this one because this is their thing.
Well, now, I mean, you let us off the show saying there was a callback involving me and these gentlemen. And I was just going to sit here.
Well, I mean, the callback, I mean, because I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but it's Chris Hatfield.
Yeah, I said
and
Hatfield.
Coley said Chris Haddonfield, which is where Michael Myers is from.
That's right.
The serial killer. Yeah, he's from Haddonfield, Illinois.
Which
but that was...
I did think about that coming into today. I think Chris heard it as me reading his name and being an illiterate fuck. I was drawing it from memory and just added letters that didn't exist. So it wasn't me not being able to read.
Somewhere.
Sure,
yeah,
just
no,
not
they
his
exist somewhere.
name.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Chris Haddonfield from Michael Myers fame. Yeah. But no, I'm going to let you guys go. I just, had to set the stage.
Tyler,
it's all good. I don't have a last name on the show with like 4 letters, so it's fine. If it was 4 letters and I screwed it up, that might be one thing. But yeah,
that'd be much worse.
Coley Mac or something like that. Then
There is a Twitter user, Coley Mac. It's an old, lovely black man who sells hats. He's a haberdasher of sorts.
Did you buy one?
No, he's not super active. But when he was, buddy, the brims that he was pushing was unbelievable. Yeah, I guess my first question, why no Kristian Campbell with this too? Why are they drawing a line in the sand between the big three and Kristian Campbell?
A number of reasons. I mean, first of all, I'm kind of surprised they moved Meyer because Meyer's hurt right now. And I actually got a source before the show. I asked, does this mean that Marcell is going to be good for Tuesday? And it's a maybe. So he's still kind of nursing a hip thing that he may or may not be playing on Tuesday. He got activated from the IL 2 days ago, and then he got scratched on Saturday. So it was weird. But experience, because all three of these guys were in Portland last year. So part of it is just a number of at-bats thing. And, my reaction to them getting moved up, it frankly, with how aggressive they've been since last year now, with this sort of brave new world we're in without short season ball, they've been a lot more aggressive with promotions than they had been prior to 2020 and prior to, condensing the number of teams down to the 4 full season affiliates in the complex. It's clear they were really deliberate about moving these three, right? Like they wanted to make sure they did it at the right time. They didn't want to do it too early. And I think it's pretty clear they wanted to move all three of them at once. So, it's not that, hey, what a coincidence. They all hit their development goals at the same time. I think it's clear they wanted to move them together. But with Campbell, I mean, he just got there. He's actually had a stretch lately, although he's starting to come out of it, where he hasn't been hitting for a ton of power. My guess it's
homer 3 straight.
I was going to say, it's
right. Hence he's coming out of it. But I think they had him working on, we heard about, he came into the system last year as a guy with really great contact skills.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to tap into more power, potentially at the, cost of some of those contact skills. I think they had him working potentially on, okay, you're hitting for the power. Great. Let's try and tweak this a little bit. So I think they have him working on some things in AA. And sometimes the lights just aren't quite as bright in AA when you're 2 levels away as 1 level away. So I think they're really big on we want to be really sure you're ready for AAA before they move guys to AAA. Unlike, they're shooting guys. I mean, today they also promoted Alan Castro and Yostinson Garcia from Greenville. Garcia started the year in Salem, and that's the same thing Roman Anthony did last year. They are much quicker, I think, to promote guys. Salem, Ian may or may not agree, but it seems like when they get guys to AA, they are much more measured about moving them up to Worcester. So I think that's honestly just the thing of it. Campbell could easily start there next year for all we know, and maybe even get a cup of coffee this year. But I don't think it's surprising that they didn't move Campbell with him.
I also think playing time in Worcester would be tough with him because, especially with Vaughn Grissom down there, you have him and Chase Mydroth and now Meyer for the middle infield spots. Right. And Campbell has been playing a little shortstop, a little second, and a little center field. And in center field, you have Roman Anthony now. So I just think it makes more sense to leave him in Portland for now, even if, I saw him this week. He's raking again, and everything is trending in the right direction. There were some early season hiccups with like in-season in-zone contact and things like that, and all his advanced metrics are trending in the right direction. So at the plate, he's probably ready for Worcester because I don't know how much he has left to learn in AA, but I think the bigger issue is defensively. He's still trying to find a full-time position because they have moving around, and then the fit is just not great right now with who they have up in Worcester.
So with Campbell right now, I thought it was kind of interesting. Spear had it in his column today, just mentioning the big 3 promotions that, there's some people that are willing to put Campbell, jumping ahead of Kyle Teel to some degree. And you look at where Campbell is right now, he's 99th on BA's top 100. Ian, I know early in the season, you were kind of a big person saying like, I'm here from scouts. Some people absolutely love the guy and they're kind of all in on the talent. Others are, take a step back, don't attach the rocket to him quite yet. Do you feel like more people are kind of moving off of that now as he's cut the K rate down and we've seen, him not swinging and missing as much in the zone? And ultimately, with him playing all these positions, where do you think he's most likely to end up long-term defensively?
Yeah, I think that the haters or the people questioning it are getting smaller. Those voices are kind of disappearing, and he's answering just a lot of the questions that we had. Like, even when you see it, it still is a little funky because he has some of the most aggressive takes you'll ever see. Like, I saw his batting gloves fall out of his back pocket on a take, and he's a double batting gloves guy too, which I love. Like, there's nothing better than a guy who you got him on, and then you got some in your back pocket also, just in case you need to double layer or something. But which in Portland you might need to early in the season too. But for the season, against fastballs 94 plus, he's hitting 306, 414, 531. Like, very good. breaking balls. Okay, look, you'll see him take some ugly swings against breaking balls, and you go look at the data. He's a 550 slug against breaking balls this year. So it's like everything you see, even if you catch him on a cold streak, you then go look at the data and it's all great. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I guess, sometimes you just have to believe that. And I think if you see him for long enough, you get it. He's just got really, really good hand-eye coordination. And even if it doesn't look natural, which is, I think, the holdup a lot of people had early in the season, like the number of guys who swing like he does and as aggressively on their takes is Hunter Pence, maybe. And that's about it. So it's a lot of it is, how do you envision this guy at the major league level? There's one player like him. So you don't like comparing people to that. But the way he's what he continues to do, and he's made the necessary adjustments. I think that there's a lot of those, the doubters are getting much smaller. And then, as you said, defensively, I think probably he's going to end up at second base. I saw him at shortstop this week, and he hasn't played there in a while, so it's kind of not a great look. But it wasn't great. It was a little rough. So I would say probably second base, maybe center field. He's such a good athlete that I think you give him a chance in both. And you kind of let him figure it out. And if he's got position versatility, that's going to be great for the Red Sox going forward, or, great if they end up deciding that he's someone they want to explore as a trade package to upgrade other positions on the team.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, like, would they just keep him in Portland to keep raking? The playing time makes a lot of sense, but if he got quote unquote exposed at Worcester heading into a trade off season, maybe doesn't help his value as much as him just tearing apart Double-A the rest of the year.
No, that's definitely something teams do too.
For sure.
And there are orgs that will see that and be like, ooh, this guy, how can we sell this to the fans? This guy's hitting, 380 in Double-A. Sign me up. Like, we can trade, he can be the centerpiece for a really good major league player in that. And you can sell that to your fan base if you're the acquiring team.
Oh, yeah. Have you guys ever encountered a trio that were all basically top 3 prospects in a team's organization getting promoted to the same team at the same time? Like, is this unprecedented for at least like your time covering Red Sox prospects?
I mean, I've focused more on this system as the thing, but I'm also trying to think. I remember, I think I'm okay to say this at this point, but like the Red Sox for a while, like they haven't had this foursome of full season affiliates the whole time the sites existed, since it started in 1970 before the internet existed. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, we're in our 20th year this year. Mike started the site in the fall of 2003. And for 2 years, they had an affiliate in Wilmington, the Blue Rocks, that had long time been a Royals affiliate. For whatever reason, it switched to being a Red Sox affiliate. And one thing that we heard, because after that, they used to do 2-year player development contracts, the Blue Rocks went running back to the Royals. And part of the reason was that the Royals used to promote guys together, like a lot more than the Red Sox did at the time. And that led to teams that like did better win-loss wise. And so, that was a thing that some organizations do. That said, was it like this? I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of like the Red Sox at one point, the Greenville Drive team that had, Moncada and Devers and Chavis and, Mauricio Dubon, who we saw today. Too. Yeah, Benintendi got there at the end of the year. I mean, they had those guys on the same team, but they didn't like promote them together. So I think it was a unique opportunity to keep this trio of guys together who were probably all on relatively the same timetable. So do it, right?
Well, I also think that there just aren't very many teams that have 3 prospects of this caliber on this, as Chris said, on the same timeline. Like, you look at, Baseball America's List, ESPN, whichever one you want to look at, how many teams have 3 guys in the top 30 or so who are at the same age, or not the same age, but the same like developmental stage of their careers. It's just very rare to happen. And the Red Sox just got very fortunate in that they decided to be bad in the COVID year. You got Marcelo Meyer. You float Roman Anthony to your 2nd round pick and you get him there. And then Kyle Teel somehow falls from potentially going like 7th or 8th to, I think it was 12th or 13th. 14th, and you get him. Yeah. And then you get all those guys and all of a sudden, they're on the same timeline. That just doesn't happen very often. I mean, you can see like the Orioles kind of had something like this talent-wise at the top, but it was because they were picking in the top 3 every year. And even with that, it wasn't like they were promoting them together. They all kind of just matriculated up to the top of the minors together.
Do you give any of them, and I'm mostly Teel, but so the other 2, do you give either of them a shot to make the team next spring?
The issue is, can you build the team relying on that? Is to me the problem. I don't know if you agree with that, Ian. This seems like something we would maybe debate on our pod.
I think Teel makes the most sense if you're going to say for opening day, because catcher's open. Danny Jansen's a free agent. Frankly, he's probably better than what you're going to be able to sign on the free agent market, assuming you want to, because especially he would be a min salary guy, so it allows you to devote resources elsewhere. So I think he makes the most sense. If Roman Anthony hit right-handed, he would be my answer. But unfortunately, he hits left-handed, and so that's going to be, I'm sure, a fun discussion this offseason about what they do in the outfield. Because if I had to pick one, like just on talent, I could see Anthony just being like, I'm the best player on this team. I think he thinks he is, and I mean, he goes out there and he breaks. He's hit a ball harder than Rafaela Devers this year. Just think about that.
Was that
like
did he hit a ball that was the highest average exit velocity of anyone in the Red Sox organization this year?
Yeah, correct.
That's crazy.
And it's not just that. It's if you look at like all of his batted ball data, Devers is the only full-time player ahead of him in terms of 90th percentile exit velocity, which is kind of like one of the key metrics when you're looking at the upper echelons. So he's right up there with Devers in terms of how hard he hits the ball. And he's 20.
That's crazy.
And so if he goes out in spring training, and he's been on a tear lately, he's hitting like well over 400. He usually does this. He has these early season struggles, and then he eventually just gets accustomed to the level. And the stuff I saw from him this week is he was just making like in at bat adjustments where, he'd swing through a changeup early in the count, and then a couple pitches later, get the exact same pitch, stay back, and just drive it 400 feet to left field for a home run. And that's the kind of stuff 20-year-olds don't do. Right. And when he's reached the point where he's able to make in a bat adjustments, and he's getting aggressive, like, because he's a very patient hitter. He sees a lot of pitches. He does not expand the zone. But in the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing him, first pitch, second pitch. He hit a game where he saw 8 pitches the entire game, and he had 4 hits. And he just went up there and first, second pitch and was just like, if you're going to throw strikes early in the count, I'm just going to hit it hard. And that's what he does. And I think that's something that's sustainable. Like, I could see him doing that at the big league level next year. The problem is just the fit is weird, because Willie Abreu's been incredible this year. Jarren Duran has arguably been the best player than Devers on the Red Sox. And Rafaela is probably going to be in the outfield next year. And we've seen defensively why he's going to be out there. And so where does he play is kind of the tricky part.
Well, and that's the tough part with Meyer too, because I mean, you talk to some scouts who think he's a third baseman, and you talk to some scouts that maybe think he can stay at short. And, when I say there are some scouts who think he's a third baseman, I know what some people listening to this are going to respond to that with, but that I don't think that's happening yet. Like, Rafael Devers is your third baseman right now. What's the deal with Story? Who knows? Maybe we'll get an answer to that by the end of this year. There's something there at second, but Myers literally never played the position in pro ball. So
it's also a weird fit for him because he's like 6'3", 6'4". Yeah, so it's not a guy I really probably want at second.
So a lot of that is just roster machinations, and that's part of what Breslow is going to have to deal with this offseason, right? Is you've got the left-handedness thing. You've got a lot of outfielders and guys who are close in the minors, and the pitching, who knows how they address that. So there's a lot of moving parts that are.
What would you guys do?
I don't get paid to do that, luckily, but I mean,
there's got to be an odd man out somewhere, and it's going to be a tough call. Yeah. Like, it's going to be a very tough decision. Coldy set the internet on fire, I think, the last episode with his suggestion. But I mean, it's the
right call.
Someone valuable has to go. To make room for Roman Anthony, and then you also have like the 2 left-handed out there. But really, I mean, as long as they're good, I don't give a shit if the whole team hits left-handed. It is what it is. But I mean, I know it's an extreme example, but like Yordan Alvarez, it's like, all right, righty, lefty, who gives a shit? If you can hit both, and whatever. But I don't know what you do there. Like, you're like, no matter how you move it around, like, you're not like, and now we're getting in the weeds, but the whole Masataka Yoshida thing, like, you're going to have to open up DH for Devers, but Yoshida's actually hitting now. Like, what? It's a good problem to have. It's like, hey, we have too many good players, but it is a problem nonetheless.
I think we've seen, though, Craig Breslow is able to get creative. I think the Nick York trade for Quinn Priester is a great example of that. And it's whether it be this offseason, next year at the trade deadline, we're probably going to see the on steroids version of that, where they move whether it be one of the established major leaguers or one of these prospects for a pitcher or a right-handed hitter who plays, a different position, something like that is probably the way out of it. And we've seen that he's bold and willing to make that trade. So I think that's probably the way out of it. The question is, how do you go about it with which player? Because as you said, they have a bunch of good players at the same positions. And so it probably is largely going to come down to fit with the other team of what are they looking for and who can we get back that is the player we think the highest of.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have viewed Duran as untouchable. And then you look at Wilyer and you're like, well, I mean, that, like, outside of him just airmailing every throw into the 20th row, like, this is like when
part of his charm.
Yeah, like when you have these outfielders come up as prospects, the hope is that they become as good as Wilyer is now. Like, why trade that? Like,
even with Wilyer, it's right. We have not seen him hit lefties, consistently at the big league level. And part of that is Cora protecting him, right? Like, that's what factors in there. He's getting that typical rookie treatment. But I think that's even something with Roman Anthony, right? Where the K percentage against lefties is over 30%. He struggled against breaking balls. Like, that might be something else that kind of complicates that whole AAA level. Like, do you look at that, Ian and Chris, and you kind of say, like, they were fine seeing what he had done at AA, like there was nothing else to learn there. That's something he could figure out at AAA. Or is that more just an age thing? He's 20 years old. Like, of course he's going to have a couple warts, but he's fucking Roman Anthony.
I think it's probably a little of both. As you said, like, he actually does have a higher OPS versus lefties than righties this year, but it does come with more strikeouts, which shows that he can still impact the ball against lefties, which is a very important thing. I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you're going to hit 230, 240 against lefties, but you're slugging close to 500, you'll take that any day of the week. That's a trade-off you're fine with. The break ball stuff is legit, and it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts at the AAA level, because that's up there is when you get those crafty 31-year-old righties and lefties who just can spin a breaking ball and that's it. And with the the challenge system and everything, it'll be interesting also to see how he adjusts to that as someone who's a very patient hitter. I think it'll benefit him that they're no longer using the full ABS there. So, but I think that that's something that he can work on. Like, as a 20-year-old, those are things that are fixable. It's not like we're talking about a guy who's like in his, mid late 20s or even a college guy. When you're a high school guy, I think he's the youngest guy they've had in AAA since it was some player I've never heard of before. So it's been a while. And I think that it's something that when you've seen the steps he's taken and the adjustments he's made as he's developed so far already, there's no reason to think he can't make those necessary adjustments at the next level as well.
When you guys look at what's been going on with Kyle Teel, and I think a lot of people thought he'd be the first one out of the big three to move up to Worcester this year. I thought there was an interesting note from Spear that, the kind of growth defensively behind the plate maybe wasn't as smooth as some maybe expected, but it's been a lot better since July. Ian, I know you were just there recently. Can you kind of paint the picture of what that growth has been like? Because I know he wasn't calling games in college or anything like that. What has kind of been the development behind there and whether it kind of stalled maybe more than expected?
I think with him, it's a lot of, I don't know. He's very athletic for a catcher, but it sometimes is not good athleticism in the sense that he gets a little happy with his hands. The glove position was not great early in the season. And I think that's something they've been working on and why he was left in AA for as long as he was. The manager in AA is one of the better catcher instructors in the system, Chad Epperson. And so they've been doing a bunch of work with him. And you notice his glove is just a lot more quiet now. The throwing is still a little inconsistent. Pop times are fine, but it's just not as accurate as we've seen from him in the past. Like, I remember there was a throw that I saw from him last year in Greenville where he fielded off to the side and just threw it like under, basically like sidearm to second base and nailed the guy. And it was like a 1-9 or something pop time. And throws like that have just not been the norm this year. He's had some trouble controlling the running game, but I think it's definitely gotten better. Like he threw a runner out when I was at a game this week there. And I think that it's a lot of attention to detail stuff. I think it puts a lot on, you remember, he was, it's not like he's flown through the minors to get up to AA, now AAA. And it's a big adjustment, just learning to call your own games and to have to focus on also, hey, we need you to work on your framing. We need you to work on, glove position. You're going to start catching now on one knee, which is something they go up and down the organization with. That's a lot to put on someone's plate quickly. And also, oh, by the way, you have to go out there and hit at the top of the lineup every day. And so I think that it's just one of those things that it takes time with catchers. They're usually the slowest to develop. And the fact that he's moved as quickly as he is, I think shows the kind of aptitude he has behind the plate and how much talent he does have. And Now it's just about finishing school. He's going to be up in AAA and he's going to have to go out there and he's talked to, 31-year-old or 32-year-old Jason Alexander. I don't know. I'm just guessing his age. I have no idea how old he actually is. And be like, hey, this is what I want you to throw. And you got to say that with conviction, because otherwise they're just going to keep shaking you off. And now it's about, getting up there, learning to call the game, learning to work with those pitchers and getting the pitchers comfortable with him. Because that's another thing is, it's not just he needs to be familiar with the pitchers. He's got to make it to the point where they're comfortable throwing to him and they want to go out there and throw to him. Because we've seen at the major league level how much the catcher-pitcher relationship is important. And if a pitcher's not comfortable with a catcher, it usually doesn't end well. And so he's got to go up there now and get to the point where all those pitchers are comfortable throwing to him. And I think that's kind of the final step in his development, is going to be figuring that out at the AAA level and eventually the major league level.
Yeah. Didn't Price hate throwing to Blake Swihart?
Yeah.
Well, that's the name you think of when you talk athletic catcher too. Like, I feel like that's where everyone's mind immediately goes towards now.
Yeah.
Connor Wong might be, slowly kind of putting himself in that conversation as well lately.
I mean, but even Connor Wong has his issues defensively. Like, as good as his arm is, like, his framing is not
today
good
was
at
a good
all.
example.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about framing recently because I can't remember who we were facing, but their catcher just didn't move their glove at all, where even if it was outside, and they were getting strikes. I feel like that should, I don't know the actual definition of like what good framing is, what they're looking for. But when I see Wong try and rip a ball like off the ground to the middle of the zone, obviously that's never going to get called. But if you just sit there and be like, nope, he hit his mark, that gets called whether or not it's a strike more often than not. That's where I think we need to be shifting, at least him. I can't speak for the rest of the catchers in the system.
Well, that was the thing with Teel, is that his glove would get a little active or a little loud. And it'd be like, it'd be a pitch on the inside corner and he'd turn it. Or if you turn your glove, that's a red flag to the umpire that it's probably not where you want it to be. Like, he would do things like that. And, now it's just a lot quieter. And I think that's something, as you said, that's Connor Wong's probably biggest issue. Is,
crazy.
If you move your glove, an umpire, because let's be honest, a lot of time they're guessing. Like, I had a situation this week up in Portland where an umpire got hit in the face with a pitch directly and called it a strike. He just completely guessed. It was like the other manager got tossed. He went ballistic. It was great.
Sure.
And so
it's double A for the
it was wild.
Too.
It was a breaking ball, and Teel was not even close where Teel was set up, and somehow the umpire just called it a strike, even though it hit him. And it might have been concussed. Don't want to speculate, but yeah, like, the umpires are guessing some of the time too. And it's like, if you can, that's the whole game with framing, is you're trying to make a pitch look better than it is. And if you're moving all over the place, that's not going to do it.
Who is the prospect that burned you guys? Because I hear you talking about Roman Anthony Meyer, Teel, and you guys have the grade system on Sox Prospects. I've never seen anyone higher than like their range. I've never seen an 8. You know what I mean? Not one. Has there ever been an 8? Was Moncada been an 8? Or was there someone you gave it to early and you were like, we're never doing this again?
Well, we changed our grading system. We weren't always on the 20/80 scale. When Mike started the site, it was like, school grades like ABC with pluses and minuses and stuff. And then for a while we were on a 1 to 10 system. And so I don't think we adopted the 20/80 scale. I think it was like 2016 or something. Like, it was after you, it was a while even after you were the director of scouting.
And then we switched it, so now it follows the MLB like standard scouting scale.
Yeah, the 20/80
the stuff
scale.
They teach at like scout school, we just follow their guidelines.
Yeah, and having no 8s is on purpose, because if you talk to any scout that puts an 8 on a guy should be fired immediately. You don't do that, because that has to be proven at the majors. So
yeah,
we're probably never gonna do that. The thing with the grades too, and the thing is with the rankings and the grades, is it's a snapshot in time. We always say, right? So as of today, here's the rankings. Like, Mookie Betts was not always the number 1 prospect in the system. There were times when Mookie Betts was in the system when he was not in our top 60. You can argue about whether that was right or not, but like, I'll defend the fact he wasn't in the top 40. He almost retired.
If you saw him in Lowell, it wasn't.
He almost
if you saw him in Lowell, it was
he was
defensible.
calling colleges to see if they wanted him to go play basketball. Right? Like, and this is a guy who's probably the best player to come through the system since we started doing it. So, have we been burned? I don't know about burned. Like, we've had guys like Swihart.
I have one.
You have one? Who do you have?
Yeah. Alan Webster. I thought he was going to be great.
Can't hate on that.
I thought he was going to be great.
He was part of the Nick Punto trade?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw him a bunch in him and Ruby. I saw a bunch in Pawtucket.
Yeah.
And I thought Alan Webster was going to be really good. And it was one of those things. It was a learning lesson because it was one of the where little things like makeup didn't have a great feel for it at the time. And sometimes guys just aren't up for pitching in, big environments. They're better suited. Boston's not a market for everyone, as we've seen over and over again. And that was between that and learning the importance of commanding your fastball. That was definitely a learning lesson with him because I thought he was going to be like a number 2, number 3 starter. And obviously he was not that at all.
Jared probably knows the one I would go to here with Blake Swihart. I mean, we had the whole back and forth with that saga.
Yeah.
And now
that was a whole
the day
thing.
I die, so that wasn't on him. But,
Yeah, I mean, they definitely did not put him in a position to succeed at certain points. But I also think that he was a little bit of an airhead too. Like I don't think that I'm trying to think of the best, like Connor Wong's mental makeup. Like that guy is professional. Like he's locked in, he's ready to go. Whereas I think Blake Swihart was trying, like the second he got called up, like he was trying to like live like the big league rock star life. And it's like, dude, focus on your job. Like nothing is promised to you. Like you haven't like quite made it yet. But yeah, I think, looking at some of these prospects that have had a ton of hype over the last 20, let's call it 15 years. Let's not go back to Adam Heisdu because that is that would be dating ourselves here. But for the last 15 years or so, can you recall a time where the hype matched the actual talent that you guys saw? Because obviously I think the as much as I believe the hype for these guys, I think part of the hype comes from the fact that the Red Sox have been so bad for so long now, where we're just desperate for that next core that we had in 2018, basically.
Names come to mind for me.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead. You first, Ian.
Yeah,
I know they're.
I think Devers. Yeah. When you saw Devers in Greenville, which was probably, I think that's the first time I saw him outside of spring training, and you see him take BP, and it was just one of those. You hear the ball come off the bat, and you immediately know who's at the plate, and there just weren't a lot of guys who can swing with the violence that he does while still being so controlled and hit the ball as hard and as far as he did at such a young age. And I remember seeing him back then and being like, well, shit, like if he's not going to be the next star on the Red Sox, I don't know what baseball is. And so I would say he was probably one that definitely I think has lived up to the hype. I mean, he's making $300-something million.
He's all right. Time will tell.
He's doing okay for himself. So I would say he's probably one of them. But I think there's probably more that haven't lived up to the hype than have now that I'm starting running through names. And a lot of it is largely due to injury, but which is something you can't really factor in. I think Anderson Espinosa is the one who came to mind there because I remember seeing him
killing it in South Korea.
Oh, is he? Good for him.
That was the Pomerantz trade?
Yep. Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah, he was as a set. I think he was 18 in Greenville, which was low A at the time, but he was throwing 100 with like the best breaking ball I'd seen from any minor league pitcher at that time of any age. And he was 18 or 17. He might have been 17.
I think he
still,
was
honestly.
17.
He was absolutely incredible. And he's had 3 Tommy Johns now. Like that stuff you can't just predict. So I think that a lot of the times when a guy's career gets derailed, it's largely due to injury or things that, are just completely out of your control. And why Chris says the snapshot in time is so important.
Yeah.
Because things can change so rapidly in the development game.
The other one that comes to mind is Jake
can
Groom.
look like
Jake Groom was, you and I saw him, the start that he...
The next Clayton Kershaw.
Well, we saw the start that he blew out in spring training.
He was 96. It was like throwing 96, 97 with like a 70 breaking ball. And then he doesn't pitch again for 2 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
My apologies. Espinosa's on the Oryx Buffaloes. Shout out the Buffaloes.
Is he still killing it though?
Oh yeah. Through both levels, I'm not as familiar with the NPB, why there are 2 Oryx Buffaloes and why he's young for one league and slightly old for the other. But across both levels of Buffaloes, he's 8-5 with a 210.
Oh, we'll take that.
All right.
He's not alone. I mean, Casey Kelly went over there and has made a great career for himself. Kyle Hurt is another one I can think of, or Kyle Hart, excuse me. Like the Red Sox have a nice pipeline of guys who don't eventually turn out, who they probably traded, who go over there and make a nice career for themselves.
So we were talking about Mookie's start.
Mm-hmm.
When do you guys start readjusting? Because I was listening to you guys a couple episodes ago. You don't like to yo-yo people. You don't like to overreact month to month within that snapshot. But Mookie had that crazy 80 game on base streak. At what point are you just like, all right, now he's obviously a top 60 guy, but is he number 1? Is he 25? What's that process of being like, all right, the guy we used to know is clearly dead. He's changed something. How many at bats, how many games does that take for you guys to buy?
As a general proposition, I mean, but now we have better access to underlying numbers that tell us a lot. Things like how hard guys are hitting the ball. Are they making good swing decisions? Are they making contact in the zone? And those are things that teams look at, right? So there's a little more behind the curtain there. And plus now we can watch guys. I mean, back then MILB TV didn't exist either, which was a huge problem, right? So you're looking at numbers. I mean, the number of times we get this guy hit 400 this month. Why isn't he in the top 10? Well, it's because he's 28 in low A. But with Betts, it was such an obvious. So he did nothing in Lowell. He got moved from shortstop to second base during the middle of the season. He went to Greenville and had an awful first month. And then UL Washington, who passed away fairly recently, was the Greenville hitting coach then. And there's a point in the first month of the season where you see him start to walk more. It goes from striking out constantly to walking more. And then the next month, he is hitting everything. And sometimes you can see where a switch has flipped. And it's just, it's not random. It can't be random. Because when we'll see guys who are like, yeah, this guy's killing the ball, but he's still striking out at a 35% rate. Right? We'll see if he's still doing it in a month or two. And people are going to think I have someone in mind when I'm saying that. I don't. There's a lot of examples of that. With Betts, it was fairly quick, and it's wild because, he wasn't at a top prospect in the system for very long because he just rose so damn quick. I saw him when he was in Portland, the year after he started breaking out, and, if the ball was in the zone, he was hitting it on the screws. And that's where, oh, no, this guy's not only the best prospect in the system, he, probably should be in the majors right now. He's better than half the guys in the starting lineup on a given day. Yeah. And you just don't see that. But with him, I mean, I'm trying to pull up just how quickly he rose. So he graduated as our number 1 prospect. We made him the number 1 prospect in April of 14. He graduates in October of 14. He went from being unranked to 50 in May of 13 to 29 later in May of 15. We did weekly updates then. And then basically being, just outside the top 20. And then he slowly rose from there. So, but that was a unique situation, So probably the best example of that this year is Garcia, who went from unranked entering the season. And I'm not saying he's Mookie Betts at all. But I'm saying, we're in camp. We're hearing he's one of the guys that they are most happy with coming into camp. Worked his ass off all off season, him and his brother, who unfortunately blew his knee out. We're hearing great things about him. Okay. And when you see him start to do it, what you're seeing underlying, what you're seeing on the field, what you saw in person, all lines up. Okay, yeah, strap the rocket to him. Let's go. Same thing with pitchers. When we get guys like Portes, who they dealt for Sims, but now we've got Juan Valera in Salem. Okay, we're getting good reports. We're seeing good things. The underlying numbers back it up. Yeah, strap the rocket to him. Whereas if you get other guys, I remember, Isaac Coffey last year was a guy who had great numbers in Salem and then Greenville. And we're like, why isn't he moving higher? Why isn't he moving higher? It's because he's sidearm in 89 to 91. Let's see it in Double A, and then he gets to Double A, and it's not quite there. And he's hovering in the 50s to 70s range. So It's a player-to-player thing.
And I think it's definitely helped now, as Chris said, the access to more information, data-wise, 100%. Has definitely been a big part. But it's also a lot of it is, what we're seeing in person. We're fortunate enough to get out to, we go to spring training, we're at all the affiliates. We're able to get eyes on guys and form our own opinions there. But then also, obviously, we're going to check those with scouts, other people who are, going to the games as well, especially for maybe some of the affiliates that we don't get out to as frequently. So I think it's just being able to get all that information and then mold it together really allows us to kind of paint a picture of a guy and have the best, have a good feel for what is real, what's not, when we need to push the guy aggressively, when we don't. And I think it's definitely helped us be more like getting on guy. We're able to get on guys earlier. Like I know like Yoel and Cespedes was someone that we were able to be get out in front on pretty early from seeing him early on in camp. There's other guys like that. Miguel Blaze, like going back, when you're able to, I think the biggest thing is honestly just getting to the games.
Sure.
Like getting out to the field is the most important thing because it's not just what you can see on the field, but it's also, building those connections and running into people that, talking to, front office people, talking to scouts there and getting their opinions. It really helps. So I think that's probably the biggest advantage we have is that we're able to do it. And we only have to cover one system. I don't envy all those, the sites and that have to go out, and cover 30 orgs at once. Like covering one organ is enough. And, but we're fortunate in that regard.
We interrupt this interview with the Sox Prospect guys to talk about Blue Moon because some beers can say that they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball, they just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. It's the natural choice for opening day and all season long. I know the Sox Prospect guys, they love Blue Moon. When they're scouting Red Sox prospects, they crack open an ice cold Blue Moon. They're like, That's an 80 grade Blue Moon every single time. That is a tasty, ice cold Blue Moon 80 grade. And for anyone that doesn't know the scouting scale, 80 is as high as you can go. That is a perfect score, which is exactly what Blue Moon is. From its refreshing flavor with Valencia orange peel free, subtle sweetness and hints of coriander, Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale is a one-of-a-kind beer that's made brighter. It's carefully crafted and full-flavored with refreshing notes and a smooth, creamy finish. Blue Moon is brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the new season. Why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something that's one-of-a-kind? Its bold flavor, bright explosion of color, and iconic orange slice ritual guarantees a one-of-a-kind beer experience that is perfect for spring weather. Best served with its signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful hazy color. A beer this good only comes around once on a Blue Moon, but you can enjoy it all season long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian style wheat ale. It's a one-of-a-kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared to see your delivery options. That is get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared. Blue Moon, made brighter, celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Yeah, for Ceddanne Rafaela, I thought one of the cool things you guys did a couple episodes ago was you kind of acknowledged the Jarren Duran growth, right? And like how you guys, what you viewed him as at certain points, when he became a top 100 prospect to falling out and then going up and down. I remember when people were giving you guys shit for saying, the defense in center field was very rough. But people were like, well, he's fast. It has to be pretty decent. And then you had it play out. I think Ceddanne Rafaela was one of the guys you kind of really put your foot forward and you talked about some of the concerns you had with him at the plate. What do you guys feel like you've kind of learned from watching his first season where, those struggles have been evident? But, I'll put my hand up. He's performing better offensively than I ever thought he would as a rookie.
I think with him, the biggest key is going to be just getting to the power because he's never going to have a high on-base percentage. I mean, he's got 15 walks and 109 strikeouts this year. And that's kind of what you expect with him. He just doesn't walk very much. You see it, the swing decisions aren't great. They're never going to be great. It's a high chase rate. But if you're hitting, 250, 260 with 15 to 20 home run power and playing elite defense in center field, that's fine. And I think that was kind of one of the things that we tried to emphasize when talking about him was like, there's still a pathway to be a really good player. Like Michael Taylor has made close to $100 million doing that in the majors and has been traded to contending teams multiple times at the deadline because his skill set is highly sought after. Kevin Kiermaier's in the same boat. That player can be really good. And it's not, sometimes you don't want to hear it that, hey, this guy might not be like a top of the order hitter, but a guy who can be an 8-9 hitter and play elite defense. And, if he hits 240 even with his defense, it doesn't matter. Like you throw Ceddanne Rafaela out there to play defense. Anything you get at him from the plate, as long as he's hitting above like the Mendoza line is fine. And that's what I think the power has been the most encouraging thing for me. I thought maybe it was going to be like 10 to 12, 13, like right around where he is. Looks like he's going to get close to 20 home runs this year. And if he can do that year in and year out, he's going to be a mainstay in the lineup, given his defense, because that's a guy you just set and forget it in the 9 spot, go play center field, be a weapon with the pitching staff. And I mean, we've watched enough Red Sox baseball to know the importance of defense in center field. And when you finally have a guy like him out there, it's going to be hard to take him out of there, regardless of how he's hitting, because of how much he helps the pitching staff.
We went to Portland, I don't know, like a month and a half ago, and you had mentioned, Ian, talking about the makeup of the prospects and getting to learn like the makeup of these guys. I came away from talking to them very impressed by, like asking like a simple question of asking like, what are you working on learning down here? And hearing like we're working on learning how to win together, instead of being like, yeah, like I'm working on like exit velocity and bat speed. Like we're working on learning how to win together. But that impressed me a lot. Like that was probably the one thing that stuck with me coming away from meeting those guys. What have you heard about like the makeup of the three that were just called up today?
I think the biggest thing I've heard is they all give a shit.
Yeah.
And like that's something that don't take for granted, because there are a lot of guys who don't care. I'm not saying this is not like talking about anything specific in the Red Sox system, but there are a lot of guys who are just out there, getting a paycheck. And if you have guys who out there who are grinding, they care, like that's what you want. And I know like Roman Anthony put on, like, I think he gained like 20 pounds of muscle or something this offseason. Like that's what you want. You want guys who are putting the work in, realizing it's a year-round job. Just because it's not in the season doesn't mean your work stops. And I think with Kyle Teel, I heard a story that during a rain delay, he was pestering the coaches to go hit in the batting cage because he was just, that's what he is. Like he's a baseball rat. That's what he wants to do. And so when you're hearing things like that from like scouts and other people, that's what you want to hear with those guys. You want to hear that they're committed. And as you said, like that's a great line. We're learning how to win. That's something you can't underrate, because you don't want guys coming up who just have a history of just, we're going out there, we're just putting in the motions and whatever happens. I want guys who are going out there that every day they're leaving it all on the line because they want to win at all costs. And I think what I've seen from those three is that they really care. And you can't really ask for anything more from guys like that.
And I think that's why they wanted to keep them together, right? Like that it's working. Sure. Why if it's not broke, don't fix it.
I also think it's like they can motivate each other, because you see one of them getting better. It's like if he's in the weight room and you're if Anthony Meyer and Teel are living together, which I'm pretty sure they did during spring training, and I'm guessing they did up in Portland again. You see one of them putting in the work after hours. What are you going to do? Are you going to go home and play video games, or are you going to go and get the work and you go to the weight room, go to the batting cage, whatever? And I think that's the kind of work ethic that can rub off on each other, and they can push each other to get better. So I agree. That's definitely why, in my opinion, they kept them all together with the promotions, is they can keep doing that now up at the AAA level.
Organizationally, what kind of changes have you seen? Because even talking about Rafaela, I think the immediate comparison a lot of us draw is Jackie Bradley Jr. When Jackie Bradley Jr. first came up, he was getting ping pong between Worcester and Boston, what felt like weekly. Like if he went 0 for 3, he was getting demoted the next day, no matter what his glove was doing. Rafaela, they just signed to start the year, and they were like, it's yours. Whatever position you want to play, use yours. So what's kind of changed from how they are approaching these guys? Even, JBJ is one of the highest makeup guys we've ever drafted. One of the best college players of all time. All of that. So that's where it's like, what has changed? I don't want to, like, who's not necessarily who's responsible, but was there a point in time last decade or so where there was a pivot?
I don't know if there was a point in time. I know in Alex's book, he wrote about how the team at the time that like Jackie and Xander Bogaerts came up was not a welcoming one for rookies.
Sure.
They didn't really have guys in that locker room that were the leaders that were kind of like, hey, it's okay that you went out and took an O for, like, you're a rookie, you'll figure it out, we'll pick you up. They sent I forget which one of them it was, but they sent them down to AAA, and they didn't want to go back up to Boston, which is a crazy thing to think, that you could set up a clubhouse that creates that kind
of. That was
atmosphere.
Manny Ramirez. That was Manny Ramirez you're thinking of.
when his grandmother died again. But I think that's part of it. Look, we just had a CBO in Chaim who was very focused on the farm, obviously. And Dombrowski too. Like, people think of Trader Dave, but like, he was no idiot, right? Like, he knew how important the young guys were. There's a reason he didn't move Devers, and people talk about not including Devers in the Sale trade. That was like anyone could have figured that out because they were asking him as a third player. Like that was just insane. But he held on to Brian Mata. They were asking for Mata in the spot that wound up.
And Benintendi. They wanted Benintendi too.
Yeah. So he knew that he had to hold on to some of these guys. It wasn't that he didn't value prospects. It's about getting guys in the clubhouse. Like, makeup still matters after guys graduate from prospectdom. I mean, that's part of it. And part of it is just, look, when they first called up Bradley, that was stupid. Like they called him up because he had a great spring training. And there's a difference between calling a guy up because he has a great spring training and calling a guy up because he showed you in camp. What Rafaela did this year, it's, okay, he was in AAA for 2 months last year. Not even 2 months. He was in AAA for 2 months, and he had time in the majors last year. He's showing us he's ready versus this guy was slated for maybe Portland, maybe AAA. Now let's call him up to the majors because he was good in camp against other teams, guys that are going to be in AA. I think they're just smarter about when they bring guys up now. There's different philosophies on it. Dombrowski clearly didn't care if a guy had touched AAA, whereas, under Bloom, I think they were a little more, they value AAA as a development level. I don't know that we've quite seen where Breslow is going to fall on that scale because the AAA to Major League call-up is where you really do see the guy in charge more involved as opposed to kind of the whole, player development apparatus talking with Breslow. But it's making smarter decisions on when to call guys up. And right now, I feel like we say this every year, but the gap between the minors and the majors is as large as it's ever been. Look at what happened with Jackson Holiday, right? Like not everyone comes up and pulls a Paul Skeens. And it doesn't mean that they're not a great prospect. It's being smart about that because guys are developing differently because there are fewer levels of the minors, and AA doesn't mean what it used to mean. Low A doesn't mean what it used to mean. I was talking to someone last year who said, low A is basically like complex advanced for us now. It's not what low A used to be. So, it's making these smart decisions on when to move guys up. And I think that's part of why we saw them take their time with the big three, right? It's like make sure they're ready for AAA so that they get enough time there so that then they're ready for the majors when they are showing us they're ready, not when we feel like we need them because the left fielder is going to be out for a month.
I know you brought this up after he was drafted. Where would SEC baseball fit with the new hierarchy of minors? Is it between high A and double A? Is it between double A and triple A?
Probably high A. Look at, because the guys they drafted this year.
I would say low A and high A.
Yeah, they're 4 guys that they've drafted this year that they've assigned. They're all college guys. 3 of them are hitters that all went straight to Greenville. Like I don't think you're going to see any day 1 or 2 college guys go to low A anymore unless it's a numbers thing. Just because it's
because the thing is after the draft is pointless too because by that time it's just the complex league, as you said. Like that's the level where we found kind of the loss of the Penn League is most felt. Is that jump is you just have to be more aggressive with pushing guys to low A. And by the end of the season, at the start of the season, low A is a little better because you have the guys that have, they've shown enough in camp to get that assignment naturally. But by midway through the season, as those guys start moving up, you're going to be pushing guys who weren't good enough to make low A out of camp. And so by then, the level of competition just isn't there. So yeah, I think, you look at the SEC, like if Braden Montgomery was healthy, he'd go straight to Greenville. And frankly, I would be surprised if he ended the season in Portland, kind of like what Kyle Teel did last year.
Yeah.
That seems like kind of the new norm for those elite prospects. I wouldn't take what the Angels are doing.
No, I was about to bring up Kristian Moore. Kristian Moore's going to lead off the Angels tomorrow.
Yeah, but that's the Angels. That's the way they do it, and it's taken some time. Zach Neto's now really good. That's worked out well. Nolan Shanwell, we'll see, but I think that's kind of like a unique development path that is not going to be repeated by many orgs as we're seeing. But I think teams are going to be more aggressive, and that's going to be the interesting thing is what's going to start happening as we kind of get even couple years down the road. Are we going to start seeing, is this going to become the norm? Are there going to be guys, knocking on the door of the big leagues their first draft year or for that second year? So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens with that going forward.
Are you guys hesitant to use the word untouchable with any prospect?
I have a rant on this where I don't think the term exists other than functionally untouchable. Right, because I don't think there's any player you should be unwilling to trade for the right return. Like if the Angels are not the Dodgers were going to give you, Ohtani, like Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Have Roman Anthony. Cool. Like, fine.
We're too left-handed, Chris. What don't you get? We have no space for Ohtani.
Right. But it's like, does the trade exist where you would move one of those guys for the Red Sox that makes sense? Right. Like, I don't know that trade was there this trade deadline. I don't know if it's going to be there this offseason. Maybe it will. If a Scooble comes available, like, is that the deal? I don't know. But I just don't. I get the term, and I think it exists in a way that people don't really think of it. Because a lot of times we get the question, should they keep this guy or should they trade him? Like the other teams don't know the guy stinks or something. Like, they're reading his RBIs and think he's good or something. Like, that's not how it works. Right. But, maybe maybe there are a couple.
The Rock.
The Tigers.
Maybe. But it's, there are some teams that are better at it than others. But, like, it's not like teams don't see that a guy whiffs at a 40% rate. Like we used to get that with Rafaela. It's like our team's going to think that this guy's defense is so good and they're going to overlook the fact that he chases at a high rate. And it's like, well, if we see it, they do. Like, we don't have access to something that teams don't,
Well, I do think some teams will care about it more than others, I think is a fair way to say it.
Which is different, right?
Definitely different.
Yeah. I think, though, it's interesting if you look at the trade deadline this year, not a single top 100 prospect was traded in Baseball America's rankings. And that seems like it's those high-end prospects, and it's not just the Red Sox, it's all teams. Teams are just very hesitant to give them up. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of two things. It's one is you don't want to be the guy who traded the next star. Like, the Dodgers, no one cares, but they traded Yordan Alvarez. Like, that's kind of wild that they traded him. And O'Neal Cruz, too, right? Yeah, exactly. And they were traded for relievers. Like, imagine, like, you don't want to be that
Sims.
Guy. Yeah. You don't want to be that guy. And so it's kind of created this system where, and you saw it with what the Red Sox gave up. You're more, you're willing to give up 4 quarters, but you don't want to give up that $1 bill. And it becomes more of a quantity versus quality thing. And that's why, while I don't think, there's no such thing as an untouchable, I think we're approaching a point with not just the Red Sox, with all teams where they're just very hesitant to give up those elite prospects because you don't want to be burned by it. But it's also, there's so much excess value they bring with those rookie contracts, either if you can extend them early on, like we're seeing a lot of the teams do, like Jackson Chourio. How's that contract look these days? Like Corbin Carroll. I know he had his rough start to the year. Looks like Corbin Carroll again. Like, the surplus value you get from guys like that, or the guys you just leave on rookie contracts, is insane. And it allows you to balance your roster and go out and spend big money on those other guys if you have an ownership that's willing to spend. And so that's why there's just so much value with them and why you're just so hesitant to see teams deal those elite prospects.
Speaking of Portez, when I saw that trade, I was immediately furious. He had obviously gained some helium with you guys, but the numbers and age and miles per hour, it's like, all right, yeah, let's see this one out. Even if it's just he keeps pitching as he's pitching into the offseason. This is probably a nice little trade chip for a real player. Who are these other younger arms that it made Breslow feel like, okay, this one's okay. We have, like you were saying with Valera earlier, we have other guys in a similar basket where we don't feel like we're going to get burned too bad here.
I think Valera is the big one. I think they like him more than Portez. I think that they think he has a much better chance to start. And I know he's being handled very carefully. Like, he's only going 4 to 5 innings, but he also hasn't given up a hit in 7 of his last 10 starts. Like,
okay,
he's striking guys out. He's up to 97, 98 with 4. He's showing 4 pitches. Definitely a work in progress. Slider, sweeper, changeup also. But I think that they feel very good about him, and he was someone that they were very hesitant to give up. Whereas they obviously were okay trading Portez for a rental. So I think that internally they feel really good with where they're at with Valera. I think some other guys like Elmer Rodriguez is another one who's taken a pretty big step forward. I know he had a lot of interest at the trade deadline. They hold on to him. I mean, you look at that Greenville pitching staff right now, and I think that they just have a lot of interesting guys there. And yes, they traded Portez, they traded Jefferson Vargas, who was another hard throwing righty, probably a reliever, but throws really hard. But between Elmer, Yordani Monegro, who's really come around after a slow start to the season,
our best prospect
on strikeout celebrations, without a doubt. I mean, The way he
most fun. Yeah.
Brawls would be crazy.
But like
I was gonna say Conrad might push him there. Conrad was walking off the mound with his chest held high in the greater Georgia region.
Those high school tapes, they hit pretty hard when you see when he's throwing 98, 99 miles an hour as a 17-year-old.
Oh man.
But then you even someone like Jetix and Paez, who I not someone I've been that high on, largely because he throws like 90 to 91. Really good feel, like throws a ton of strikes. But like you talk to other teams, and he's someone that their analysts are like, yeah, this is like a really good prospect. And so I think they're starting to establish that depth. And you saw it in the draft this year. They went out, they drafted a ton of pitchers, and you look and they all fit the Craig Breslow, Justin Willard mold. Like there's been a pretty drastic shift of the type of arms they're targeting. They went from a lot of the guys kind of more pitchability, we can add velocity, to let's get a bunch of guys who, throw in the mid 90s with nice fastball shape and can spin a breaking ball, and then we'll go from there. And with what this new pitching infrastructure has done, elevating pitching prospects, gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to go out and kind of start establishing a constant pipeline of that. And this is unfortunately for the Red Sox, it's going to take a few years to come to fruition. But if you're willing to be patient, I think that, in a few years down the road, with the guys they have in place on the development side, and with the level of player that they're bringing in now, they come in with this baseline that you can elevate to a level that is more of an potential to be more of an impact big leaguer than what they were doing under High and Bloom. And I think that's the biggest difference we've seen on the pitching side, and why it gives me confidence that, you can go trade Ovis Portez, you can trade a couple arms down there, but you have those next guys coming through the system. I mean, Cortez, Valera, and Jefferson Vargas, who were the three that jumped all the way to Salem this year in the DSL, none of them had good stats in the DSL. None of them were even on the radar. Like, they didn't throw in spring training, nothing. Those were guys who just showed up at the FCL this year throwing in the mid to high 90s, and it's just like, okay, like, cool. They're
Valera
also
was a
throwing strikes
reliever.
now.
He was a reliever in the DSL. Like, okay.
And that's, if they can start doing that on a yearly basis, like, that's when you can start cooking. And that's the whole thing with pitchers. It's a numbers game with pitchers. Like, what are the best organizations at developing pitchers? Dodgers, Mariners. What do? They have multiple guys ready every year coming through. And you look at the Dodgers, they can lose River Ryan to an arm injury, and then they can just go down and bring up like another guy, Justin Warbolowski, or someone who's just ready to go. I just butchered his last name, by the way, but we can forget about that. But they can go find another arm, because that's what they do. And I think that's the goal of the Red Sox, to be in a few years, they can be in a position where they can have the injuries they're having right now, and they can go internally and bring guys up and not have to go potentially think about, signing Rich Hill or signing some free agent late in the season. They have internal options, and that's the whole goal with what this front office is looking for.
When you kind of talk about, those arms that they could call on this year, right? I think everyone immediately goes to Richard Fitz, and now he's going to be kind of the conversation there, whether he's ready. And I know he had a rough June and July. August has been better through 2 starts. What's kind of your outlook on him as a guy they brought into the organization? They thought they could unlock some things. And the same for David Sandlin as well, who I think is now starting to really generate some buzz as people see the stuff play up, even though it's working in shorter bursts.
I think with Fitz, as you said, it's kind of been an up and down year. He came out really early in spring training. He was throwing hard. I saw him, he was like 96, 97. Which was one of the big concerns was, can you hold that velocity? He was holding it early in the season. Then it kind of waned a little bit. Maybe he was going through dead arm. Maybe he was tired. I don't know. Just, tired. It's a long season. And as you said, the last 2 starts have been really good. The concern I think a lot of people have is just the ability to miss bats. And he's not missing bats at a really great rate at AAA. And how's that going to translate at the major league level? And
it's like the Winkowski issue.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing we've seen with this front office is they want guys who can miss bats in the zone. And I'm not sure if Fitz can do that right now. And so that kind of leaves me a little iffy, but they're at a point where they might have to call him up because they need someone who can go innings. And if he can, command his secondary stuff, there's ways he can kind of get around that. And so that's going to be the interesting one. On the flip side, Sandlin, on the other hand, has no problem missing bats. I was at his last start. I think he got 16 whiffs in 4 innings. His fastball and splitter were extremely impressive. His breaking ball was really bad, and it was funny. And then I texted with some people, and it turns out his breaking ball has been much better than his splitter metric wise in terms of missing bats all year. So maybe I just saw a bad outing with his breaking ball. But I mean, when you at the very least, you're looking at a power reliever who could be a late inning guy, because he's throwing 96, 97 up to 99 with, I thought the splitter was a plus pitch, and was really impressed by it. And he's the type of guy that if he can harness that stuff and just find more consistency with his secondary offense, he has the type of fastball that can miss bats in the zone at the highest level. And unfortunately, Luis Perales would be the king of all this because he would be like, he was unbelievable this year, and he was kind of their next big pitching prospect, but we'll have to wait a year for that now. But if Sandlin, there's definitely upside with Sandlin beyond what Fitz has if he continues to develop on the path he's on and kind of with the changes they've made with him so far this year.
Do you guys think that Luis Perales belongs in Nuttown? Because we've had the discussion about Nuttown's population. For people were tweeting about Nuttown the other day because I think Kristian Campbell hit like a home run in his third straight game. And Nuttown, what Nuttown is, the next undeniable trio of Red Sox prospects is the Nut. That's the big three. But then it became Montgomery and it became Campbell. So then that's where the town comes in. So it's Nuttown. But Tyler seems to think that Luis Perales belongs in Nuttown right now versus like he's on the cusp of being in Nuttown. Where do you fall on Perales being part of Nuttown? Because Nuttown is fluid, by the way.
Perales was sitting, what, 67 on the top 100, got Tommy John. They're like, get the fuck out. They're like, we're not even keeping you on this list. You're not even getting back in 90.
Hey, Miguel Blaze had the same fucking thing happen. I don't want Blaze not involved in Nuttown either.
He's a candidate for Nuttown, but I mean,
is there like an application process, or how do they go about getting in?
I mean, it's kind of like you're looking at it like it's happening right now. Like you guys in this conversation have the power to take away or give access to Nuttown to any one of these guys that are in the top 10. I think
we're Nuttown Immigration Services, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
we're the Ellis Island of Nuttown.
Exactly. Now you're getting it. Yes.
Changing people's names as they come in. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
I think Luis Perales belongs in it because we're seeing at the big league level with guys who have Tommy John surgery. That's not the end. Like, look at Luis Gill. Right. Luis Gill's had it twice, I'm pretty sure. And he's turned it to, the high end starter for the Yankees. We see guys come back now pretty regularly. And the stuff he was showing, like he was on a path to being one of the top right-handed pitching prospects in all of baseball with what he was showing in Portland this year. And if he'll be back late next year. And if he is anywhere near what he is, he's going to immediately jump up into like the top 50s of top 100s. So I would like to put a vote in to allow him into Nuttown.
Wow. So we could be 6 deep. Chris, what say you?
I'm not quite there yet. And I know.
Okay.
That. Here's the
Nuttown discrepancy.
Most guys do come back, but I mean, we just got done talking about Espinoza, right? Like, not everyone does make it back.
Jay Groom.
Yeah. And there are other factors that go into it. It's not a coin flip, and we'll see how Perales works it. I just want to see what it looks like when he comes back, because where he was there, I mean, he was, he had put the down payment on a house in that town, but
pitchers are people too, and we need some pitcher representation. Pitchers need to be represented in Nuttown, and there's no other option.
That's the goal.
No Zach Penrod.
What about
reliever Zach Penrod?
I know, but like, I guess that's just because that's where they need it. But now that's what I was going to ask you guys. Does the James Paxton injury, if that's as bad as it feels, because I know the Penrod thing is more of an innings limitation, but would they consider Penrod if Paxton's done?
I'd give him a shot. I just, the problem is he's not stretched out. Like, maybe you know what the way they would do it is you put like Winkowski or someone in the rotation. He takes that long role because then he can be going, because he's only going like 2 innings right now. Yeah. And so you bring him up in that role and he can be a 2 to 3 inning guy, and maybe you try to like piggyback them. I would even not be opposed to like maybe you try opening with him, like have him paired up with Winkowski, open with a lefty, especially with Bernardino down. They're going to need another lefty on this team. And I guess Paxton's going on the IL, so they could recall Boozer that way. But I think that Penrod has a role to play down the stretch with this team. I'm just, unfortunately, because of his injury, was really poor timing and how they brought him back, it'd be really hard to stretch him out to getting to like 5-6 innings that quickly.
Yeah.
Is the idea with him for coming into spring training, trying out as a starter, though?
I mean, we'll see. He's a weird one because he's actually a minor league free agent this offseason prior to the Rule 5 deadline. So there's no reason not to add him now if he's in your plans for the offseason and give him a shot. But I would assume that they would try to develop him to like bring him back as a starter next year, kind of like what they did. We saw with Winkowski, because you can never have enough starters, and you never know what's going to happen in camp. So I would assume they would try to bring him back as a starter.
People forget this too, though. Houck, before he came up, when he was in Portland, they moved him to the bullpen. And down the stretch, if they were going to be in contention, he might have factored into that bullpen, and then they, fell apart down the stretch. He winds up going to Arizona, and they stretch him back out for the fall league, and he comes back next year as a starter. With Penrod, I mean, I don't know, Jared, where did they say that it's an innings thing with him? Because he came back, he went like 4 innings, and then he had a start where he went 3. His last start, he went 2, and I actually had to like check and be like, was this planned? And they said, yeah, it's planned. And then yesterday he came in relief and threw an inning. So like, that says to me they're looking at him for a potential bullpen role as a lefty coming down the stretch here, because the guys they went out and got were right-handed. So next year you could then stretch him back out easily. But I think this year they're looking at him for a potential bullpen role.
Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. I just didn't know if Paxton changes things.
I mean, it's
going to take him a minute to stretch him back out is the thing. He's going to need a couple weeks.
Would they stretch him back out, or do they give, I know it went so poorly, attempt 1, but the return for Nick York with Quinn Priester, I know he's not really your guy's jurisdiction because he's not technically a prospect, but he's clearly not a major leaguer at the moment.
I think we're going to learn a lot about how committed they are to getting that extra year of team control, which I know you all mentioned. With like how also didn't happen to get everything worked out in just the nick of time to come up the day after they got the year of control.
Well, I also think Alex Cora said recently that Quinn Priester's not in their plans for this year, for the or at this point for the major league team.
Wow,
near future. And this year was the wrong term, but like at this point, and obviously that could change with Paxton. I mean, but they could also run out, like if Pavetta's going to be back, you have Houck, Pavetta, Crawford, Bayo's coming back, and then Criswell, 7 days, so he could be back mid next week. So you could just see those 5, and then you have Winkowski, but that does leave a gaping hole in the long relief department. And that's the big question is like, are you really going to run Brad Keller out there for the next couple of weeks? I personally would give Penrod a shot and see what he has there. But yeah, I mean, especially actually with Bernardino going down, so they only have one lefty. I forgot Boozer was already back up, so that could be Penrod, because Cora's talked about how he likes having 2 lefties on the team.
Either him or Horn, unless they go back to Bailey Horn, who's thrown well, I've heard, since he went back down. But
I mean, his stuff is really good. It's just there's not a lot of consistency from outing to outing, as we saw. He'll have his outings where he'll go 2 innings and strike out 4 and not give up a hit, and then he can give up 4 hits and walk 3 in an inning. So,
have you guys heard anything on Shane Drowan since he came back to the organization through Rule 5? I know he's on the development list right now, but
I asked about this the other day, and I'm scrambling to bring up.
He's in Worcester right now. He's in Worcester. He Instagrammed a picture of him in Worcester that one of the Worcester beat reporters tweeted about.
I did.
So I wonder if he's someone that's going to be activated this year. But I mean, I looked at his pitch data with the White Sox, and his stuff was down pretty across the board. So it's remains to be seen what he looks like. But the fact that they weren't willing to protect him from the Rule 5 last year doesn't give me a lot of confidence that he's someone who could be in the major league picture this season. I mean, who knows for next season? But right now, I think if they're going to go down to the farm, it's probably going to be one of Fitz, Penrod. I think those are really, unless they wanted to get really weird and go with like Chase Shugart or something. But
Jason Alexander, Seinfeld references for days. I mean, I got told that the Drohan was up to 4 innings in Fort Myers earlier this week, so he's stretched out.
Okay,
what kind of stretched out that is, who knows? I mean,
he's ready for Fenway. It sounds like
might as well, right?
I know you're enjoying this conversation with the Sox Prospects guys, but you're probably working up an appetite. Cole, I know Coley's hungry.
The fuck does that mean?
Well, I mean, I saw you eat yesterday. You're a hungry guy.
You ate more than I did yesterday.
All right, so then throw it back on me. Say that I might be hungry, working up an appetite, talking to the Sox Prospect guys. What the fuck?
That's all you do. You just talk and eat and talk. There's something coming in or coming out of that
talking and yapping
all day.
I did go to lunch with Cole yesterday, and I did order 3 and dinner. So technically I had 4 meals in 2. and chocolate cake.
And you brought a box of cookies home, too.
Yeah, I'm going to eat that after we're done with this podcast. But thank God for HelloFresh.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for them. Because I'm busy. My girlfriend's busy. The kids are busy. We got a busy schedule. I'm not going to be like, hey lady, where's the dinner? Not going to do that. Not going to do that. Because it's a matter of we need to work together. We need to be a team. And you know how we do that? With HelloFresh. Because we all know home-cooked meals are so much better for you. You don't always have the time to pull it off. But with HelloFresh, handling all the meal planning, shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table, quick and painless. And the quick part is, trust me, that's the part that we need to talk about. Because when you don't have time during the week, when you both are running around like mad people, when you got the million different things on your schedule, but you still want that tasty home-cooked meal, that's where HelloFresh helps you out. No more endless recipe searching or spending money on a whole jar of spices for only a pinch. With HelloFresh, everything that you need to make delicious meals comes right to your door, pre-portioned and fresh. Plus, they include step-by-step recipe cards to make cooking simple. For me, cooking's not simple, so much so that I just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But with HelloFresh, boy, is it easy. They basically do it for you. They're like, here are the ingredients. Here's the step-by-step. All they need to do really is it's a plug-and-play system here. Easily customize your meals with protein or veggie swaps. And don't forget to check out HelloFresh Market for more delicious add-on items to jazz up your weekly deliveries. It's made my life easier. I'll tell you that right now. Especially now. It's cheer season. The girls are going back. They got practice. They got games. They got all kinds of stuff that they're doing. But I still got to eat. Big dog's got to eat. Big dog's got to eat. You know what I'm saying? Coley saw me eat. Got to eat.
Wouldn't stop.
Would not stop for the whole day. And here's something that's good for me. For free breakfast for life. For life. For life. Free breakfast for life. Go to HelloFresh.com/free section 10. That's 10. One free breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life. Just by going to HelloFresh.com/free FREE section SECTION 10. Yeah, what a deal. Shout out to HelloFresh. Back to the interview.
Are you guys furious? We're like an hour and 15 in. No one's
I was just
asked
gonna say
song
that.
yet.
This is Chris's question. He loves it so much.
There's at any given time, there is always one player in the system that we get asked about in our emails for the podcast or on Twitter constantly. And it's like, if we had an update, we'd tell you guys, like, we're not withholding information. I mean, you know, it would be a nice story.
Acosta, right before that.
Christopher Acosta. Yeah. I mean, for those who don't know, he was a guy that got 7 figures, came to the States. We saw him in camp one year, immediately shot him into the top 20. He disappeared kind of literally. And I still haven't been able to get the story on what the hell happened there. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have ideas, but yeah, it's there's always one guy like that. That, you know, there really isn't one.
I mean, there was
now.
a guy, there was a guy who came over, pitched stateside, and then just went home to be a cow farmer a couple years ago. Wasn't that like that? Stuff like
Eddie.
that happens. So
it's Eddie.
You never know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So going back to Jared's Nuttown, I mean, Tyler, I think one of his favorite prospects right now is Cespedes. Where does he factor in, especially since you guys have Arias exactly one spot ahead of him? Not like, I'm sure that was a huge debate, but is Cespedes, even though he's 18, just a young lad, should he be considered for Nuttown? Because people are going to move out. They're going to have people buy those houses.
That's true.
He could get there. I mean, the thing with him and Arias is they're both so far away, and, you know, we talk about how the error bars are wide on what a guy could be. Right, like both Arias and Cespedes, if you came and told me from the future that they never even get to AA, I'd believe you.
Sure.
And if you told me that they became studs in MLB, I would believe you. Like, and they're different error bars too. It's easy to put guys in the same bucket because they're both at roughly the same level and play the same position, more or less. But they are very different players. They're not even close to the same type of guy. They're not there yet for me. And I'm pretty sure you would agree, right, Ian? I know we were talking about Arias earlier.
Yeah, I think that those two have some work to do to hit the requirements to get into Nuttown. Cespedes there's a lot of upside on offense. Defense, we got a ways to go there. We'll just say that. Sure. They're working on that, and I think with Arias, there are questions about the impact potential. Whereas Cespedes has a much higher ceiling, I think, on the offensive side. Arias is kind of more, it's a steady performer. There are questions about, are there any standout tools there? Are we throwing any sixes on there? Talking to scouts who've seen him, we're not at that stage yet. So I think those two have some work to do. I think Blaze is the more interesting one.
No, for sure.
Are either of you guys, is he in for either of you guys, or are we? Yeah.
I have him on the outside right now, personally. Just outside though. He's someone.
He's not living in the city. He's in the burbs right now.
Tyler just went on this huge rant about how Perales got hurt. You can't ding a guy because he got hurt. And Blaze last year got hurt. And you're dinging him. Here you are, dinging the guy.
I wouldn't say I'm dinging him. I'm saying I want to see the dominance at the AA level. I want to see him get up there. And obviously he's at high A and it's gone meh. I know the surface level numbers aren't great, but I've heard underneath the hood, they're actually a bit better and more encouraging. But I've been waiting to see kind of that dominant stretch from Miguel Blaze yet. And we really haven't gotten it, at least post-surgery.
Tyler, how many at-bats do you think he has against pitchers younger than him this year?
It has to be so few. I'd go 20.
32.
Maybe. Yeah, I was about to say. It has to be extremely low.
I'm surprised there's that many.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it's a lot of them are like later in the year.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been some weird ones. Some of they face like Jarlen Susana, who I'm pretty sure is younger than him. Some guys like that. I actually probably would have him on the outs right now.
Wow.
I just think that we do need to see more on-field performance because he's one of those guys that there is that split. When you see him and you look at kind of like the baseball card statistics, it's not great. You look at the underlying data, there's definitely some good things, but the underlying data is not loud enough for me to overlook the on-field performance. I think I need to see a little more for him to be under consideration, especially since I'm pushing in Perales, who's going to be out for a while. That it takes up some room. The rehab facility's got to be somewhere. So
he's getting calls from realtors constantly. Put it that way. He's not there yet.
Is the Blaze hype real outside the organization? You kind of mentioned earlier, right? Like certain guys are getting calls that you wouldn't expect to get calls or that other organizations love. I'm guessing Miguel Blaze has to be kind of the ideal situation when they look at the tools and they're like, hey, it's only a matter of time. Maybe it's just clicking one or two things and he becomes people attach Ronald Acuna Jr. to him. And now I feel like he'll never be able to escape that, comparison, which is so unfair.
Crazy unfair.
That was tough. It is hard when you're that good at such a young age. And that is what people are saying. It is hard to kind of shed that label and be your own, which is why I don't really like putting comps on players because I just think they end up sticking and it creates these unrealistic expectations of a guy. So like Cedon Rafaela, I think is a great example. Like the people comparing his swing to Mookie Betts. Like Cedon Rafaela is Cedon Rafaela. And I think this year has been a great year. I think his WAR is a lie. I don't get why it's so low. I think he's getting unfairly penalized for the start of the season when he was asked to play shortstop after barely playing there for the last 2 years. But I think that when you you're setting him up for failure if you tell people that he's the next Mookie Betts, because that's just not what he was. He's an elite defender who there's some work to be done on the offensive side. And he's done a great job offensively, I think, for given his limitations, and he's a very valuable player. And so, that's a tough one with Lace because there are teams who I'm sure would love to be able to take a chance and, hey, let's buy low on him. But at the same time, the Red Sox know that. You don't want to sell low on a guy like that. And it kind of goes back to the Yordan O'Neal Cruz thing. You don't want to be the team that trades a guy with that much upside. And it's one thing with a pitcher because pitchers' development is just so, who knows? You're flipping a coin. Like at this point, do we have any idea what causes them to get hurt or what doesn't? Hitters, I feel like it's a little safer in the sense that their development is a little easier to predict. And I think that with someone like Blaze, you kind of just have to ride it out at this point. Like you're committed to him, and it's now on if you believe in your valuations, the type of player he was when he signed, and it's still in there. And if you look at, some of the underlying data, I think there's a chance it is. It's now just got to wait it out and hope that he's able to translate that to on-field performance.
The last thing I wanted to ask was on Marcelo Meyer. And I don't know, I felt like I've been seeing this conversation. People have kind of been going back and forth now. And there's definitely a crowd of people that just want to see Meyer fail because, he's attached to Heim Bloom and the hype for all these years. They just want to say, oh, well, look, the guy wasn't as special as you guys all hyped him up to be. But when you have, the likes of Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr., who are seemingly the faces of the game today, and it's so unfair to expect him to reach that level, is there a ceiling that could be even comparable to those guys, you think, with Marcelo Meyer at this point? And obviously being a top 10 prospect in the game, it's much different than being number one at different points like those two were. But do you think he could be that kind of player that, ends up being, and you guys have Roman Anthony as the number one right now, but could be one of those faces that dominates, in just about almost every capacity because he doesn't have, say the speed of a Bobby Witt Jr., or maybe the power output of a Gunnar Henderson?
Chris, you want to go first?
It's the thing with Meyer is exactly what you said. There's no tool that screams at you when you watch him play. It's a sum of all parts thing, but it's not the way you normally would say that, like with Nick Sogard, right? Where it's like there's no above average tool. It's that they're all good tools. There's a reason he's a top 20 prospect in the game. And I think we get prospect fatigue on guys who've been around for a hot second and who we've known about from point one. Unlike, Anthony got to double A so quick, he didn't have, the lost year that Meyer had last year with the shoulder. And that makes you, feel down on a guy. Face of the game, I don't know. I mean, that's one of those things that I kind of want to see what the guy does in the majors before I would throw that on them. Does he just become Xander, quote unquote, right?
Whoa.
Where it's like a crazy thing to
Which
say.
would be a major win.
Right. It would be a huge win. Even if he doesn't turn into Xander Bogaerts, it would be a major win.
If he's an everyday player at the major level, that's a massive
like Brandon Crawford, right?
Yeah,
like a
he's
franchise kind of guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there's more than that there, but it's, there are some things there that, look, him and Anthony are 1A, 1B. We've said that for a while. We've had Anthony number one all season. The outlets that have had Meyer number one all season, they're right to have not changed that, I think. It's wherever neither of them has shown you anything this year to say that this guy is clearly the better prospect than the other one. If you came into the year thinking that one of them was better. And that's kind of the point I've made of flip-flopping is it's like, we're not doing power rankings on our site, right? If these were power rankings, Perales wouldn't be in the top 10, because he's out, right? You'd have a guy like Yostinson Garcia, who we've got in the top 20 and has been moving up. He'd be in the top 5 or something based on how he's been performing. That's not the exercise. There's a reason we've got him in the top 2. He would have been the number one prospect most of the time I've been doing this, I think, other than when Benintendi and Moncada were the top 2 prospects in baseball at the same time in the same system, right? He's a great prospect. I think he's got that potential in him. Sure. I mean, would you agree with that, Ian? It's in there. I don't know that I'd project it.
No, I think that the Witt Gunnar Henderson comparison is tough because you're talking about guys who are the number one overall prospect in baseball. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're looking at those prospect lists, it doesn't seem like there's a big difference between 1 and 20, but there is. The guys who are that number one, maybe it's probably between 1 and 3 guys in a given year are on a different caliber to everyone else. And if you have one of those guys, those are the face of baseball types. That's your Ronald Acuna, your Juan Soto, Bobby Witt, etc. And Meyer hasn't reached that level yet for me. With Henderson and Witt, there's a bunch of 7s there, and Meyer just doesn't have that 1-7 yet. You're looking at, as Chris said, it's more of a bunch of 55, 60 tools, maybe a 50 or a 45 sprinkled in there. I think speed is probably the weakest of the tools. And it's when you don't have those 7s and you have, maybe that one weak tool, in his case, the speed, It just is hard to get to that level. What makes Bobby Witt such a special player is, he's going to hit 350, whatever, 340 this year, but he's also going to go 30-30. Well, all I'm going to say is maybe that waterfall needs to be investigated. Just throwing it out.
It's pass watch.
Yeah, it is pass watch.
But he's going to go, what, 35, 35, 40, 40 maybe? Gunnar Henderson's going to hit 40 home runs. Like, I don't think Meyer's on that level with the tools, but as Chris said, that doesn't mean he's not going to be a really valuable player. Like, there's all-star upside. If he's Brandon Crawford, the Red Sox will be thrilled. And it's going to be a good test for him, is getting up there. And I think how deliberate they've been also kind of separates them. Like you saw with Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, those are the guys that fly through the minors. You know pretty quickly when you have a truly elite talent like that. And I don't think the Red Sox have one of those guys yet. Doesn't mean they can't get there. But at this point, if they were seen in that regard, they'd probably already be up in the big leagues, frankly.
We say this all the time in our rankings. Oh, go ahead, Coley.
No, I was going to say he's the Derek Jeter to Seattle's A-Rod and Boston's Nomar is what I'm hearing. All around okay.
Yeah, I think Xander is like really the one that sticks to me pretty regularly. Like most likely we'll have to move over to third base at some point. Maybe it's closer to age 30 or whatever it is. But if you get the above average hit tool, call it 20 to 25 home run power, maybe even a little less if it's Fenway Park and how the swing plays, you end up, Xander Bogaerts, people are still upset to this day that he's not here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that, though, what you just described is why, for us, we have Anthony ahead, is Anthony does have, I think, a slightly louder tool. And his power, Anthony's that's a guy who could hit 35 home runs. And even if he's probably going to do it in a corner, if you're a guy who can hit, 260 with 35 home run power, you'll take that any day of the week. And that's what can elevate you to that next level. Whereas Meyer, I think, at this point hasn't shown that. Could he get there? Sure. But I think Anthony has just shown slightly more explosive and louder tools, and that's why we have him just a hair ahead. But as Chris said, it's a 1A, 1B thing.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make is these guys, at the top of our rankings, there's a bigger gap from 1 to 5 than there is from 5 to 25. And that's something that people have to keep in mind. It's not a 1-to-1 for each spot in the system. And same thing with top 100s. The difference between 1 and 5 is bigger than the gap between 5 and 30 and between 30 and 100, or guys who aren't even on the top 100.
I thought it was interesting when Keith Law did his, whether it was post-draft or whatever, top 60. He had Meyer 2 overall. Like that. I know Keith Law is his own industry. He talks to plenty of people, but he's not like Baseball America where they have 100 people doing it. He's very much himself. But that, to me, it tells me Meyer's name is at least buzzing enough nationally where he heard it and was like, okay, yeah, this guy is in that conversation.
Keith's always been high on him. Yeah. Go ahead.
But it's also on Rafaela too, extremely.
There's a pathway to that. It largely involves he has to stick at shortstop. And if you think he's an above average defender at shortstop, and this is something that talk about a lot, I think is a 60 is different at different positions. Kyle Teel can be an impact guy, and he's not going to put up the same offensive performance that Marcelo Meyer or Roman Anthony does, because catcher, the bar is so low there. If he is a 260 with 15 home run guy, the Red Sox will be thrilled. Because that's an everyday catcher who can hold down that job and, probably is frankly a borderline all-star catcher. Whereas if that was the outcome for Marcelo Meyer or Roman Anthony, you're probably going to be a little disappointed.
Furious.
And that's why with Meyer, if you believe he's a no-doubt shortstop who can be an above-average defender there, then that's definitely that's a perfectly reasonable position to take, because there aren't a lot of shortstops in the game. I mean, you have those elite ones, but that next tier, and you see some of the guys that are being thrown out across the game at shortstop, it's not great. So if you have a guy who can play the position and be a net positive on offense, that's in itself is a valuable player before we even get into the chance that, hey, this guy could hit 20, 25 home runs, hit, 270. That's a really impact player at shortstop. So I think that a lot of it is going to come down with Meyer is going to be the position. If he can stick it short, then there's a much better chance the bar gets a lot higher there. Whereas at third base, because we're seeing, even with Devers, you can be an elite offensive performer at third base. It's just harder to get higher up in those WAR rankings and all those advanced stats. It's a lot. There's a different there's a different scale at third base.
I feel like when I've seen people talk about Meyer's defense too, like Fangraphs, for example, has been extremely low. Like screaming, like, we do not believe he can play shortstop. He needs to be at third base. You guys have been on the other end of the spectrum. Chris?
Put that finger up, Chris. Hold it high.
Cook.
Well, no, I mean, they actually did tweak that in their most recent update. They did come off of that on Meyer's defense, finally. And I'll leave it at
like,
that.
I've seen him a bunch, and the wild card is growth. Like,
yeah.
And we talked about it with Anthony. Like, Anthony went back and gained like 20 pounds this offseason. And it's why I thought he could be a center fielder last year. I don't think he can be a center fielder anymore, which is fine. Like, it doesn't matter. He's going to hit enough that anywhere. With Meyer, like, if he goes out and gains 20 pounds of muscle this offseason, maybe reevaluate it. But what I've seen from him at short, I think there's enough range there. I mean, and it's not, he's not as fluid as some of the other guys. Like, he's not going to be Jose Iglesias out there. Unless maybe he has some music skills that we don't know about. But he can get to the ball in the hole. He can go, up the middle and get it. He's got a good arm. There's plenty of range. Like, I think it's going to be fine at shortstop for 5 years plus, kind of like what you said about with Xander.
As long as he can reach first in the air on a double play. We haven't had one of those all year.
Be nice to David Hamilton. He's trying his best out there.
I'm all in.
Whole body into the throw.
Me and Tyler could do this all night, and I know you guys have another show to do. But outside of the top 30, who do you guys? And this is just having fun. No one's going to hold you to it. Jake will have them cut, clipped, and we will be reminded of them. But who's the next guy you feel good about having some real helium and shooting up the rankings? And why is it Justin Gonzalez?
Well, when we were talking earlier about arms lower in the system, it's always tough to judge what's in the Dominican Summer League program because the statistics down there mean nothing. The roles guys are in down there mean almost nothing. We don't know until they come stateside. And that's part of why the loss of the fall instructional league has been such a problem, because we don't see these guys until the spring now. And we used to get like Ian down there for the fall instructional league. And he'd come back and be like, hey, this guy you didn't pay any attention to this offseason should be a top 20 prospect. And we do that, and then he pops, and we look like geniuses. Justin Gonzalez is interesting as a guy who's getting to a lot of power down in the DSL at a young age. They've been starting to try and run him in the outfield, so he's not a first base only guy. We'll see if that sticks. We'll see what he looks like when he comes over next year. I'm trying to think. It's a lot of draftees right now. I kind of like, one of the draftees this year, who I don't like just because he's named after a guy in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but Will Turner.
You don't like him for that?
No, not just for that. Not just for that.
Okay.
No,
sorry, I thought you
that's
don't
beautiful.
like him because he's named after. I was going to be like, wait.
I'm looking forward to Orlando Bloom showing up in my timeline constantly for the next 6 years. But it's interesting as a guy who they drafted late, who came into the year as like a top 100 draft prospect, who tried to do something weird with his hands at the plate where he dropped them to try and get to more power. And it clearly didn't work. And for some reason, he kept trying to do it all year. It seems like such an easy fix. I'm very interested to see where that goes. They've already got him back up, where his hands were his junior year and when things were working. That seems like a pretty easy fix to at least become a top 20
easy
guy.
Fix. Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it's weird. Well, no, but see, we joke, but like Jarren Duran. Well,
for sure.
Like in college. His coach had him doing this like slash and run thing that like.
Well, that's Long Beach State for you.
That's what Long Beach State does.
That's just how they play. Yeah.
And he came into the system and started hitting like a regular person, and all of a sudden he can hit. Like, so we joke, but like sometimes it is that simple.
Well, I remember Drohan last year was like, my whole life I thought a changeup was just throwing a little slower. And when I finally said that out loud, they were like, no, bozo, you do it this way. So like there are a lot of obvious things that I think are almost too obvious and they don't ever end up getting changed. So I don't disagree with your point, but it always makes me laugh when it's just like, hey, dude, stop doing this. Like, go up here.
Right.
My answer was going to be Justin Gonzalez for the record. He's 6'4" already, which 17. Is interesting. Yeah. The exit velos are like major league average as a 17-year-old. And he makes a ton of contact, like at a rate that you don't really see with guys his age. Obviously, there's some things got to work on. Ground ball rate's too high. We got to elevate the ball a little more, things like that. But the analytics stuff, the data really backs up that he's a really interesting guy, and he's someone probably in terms of the list of guys I'm interested to see at spring training next year, because as Chris said, there's no longer the fall instructional league. He's going to be near the top of it because you just don't have a lot of guys coming out of the DSL with his type of physicality who are already showing that much present power potential, but also like his chase rate is fine. Like his contact rates are good. Like that mix doesn't usually come out when you're talking about the DSL prospects. So he would be in terms of the bats outside the top 30 that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, because if that's legit and he does that stateside, he could easily move into the top 30 very quickly.
All right, let these guys go do their fucking podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have any final question, Tyler? Anything on your mind?
I did have one.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Chase Mydroth. I think everyone's kind of all in on Nick Sogard right now and having fun. And listen, I'm a Nick Sogard guy, the professional at that.
Everyone is pushing it.
No one's pushing it. Nobody's pushing it. He deserves it, and he's performed so far, so let's give it to him. But Chase Mydroth, everyone wants to talk about Sogard as a professional bat. Mydroth, he has an 18% walk percentage, and he strikes out 10% of the time. I know he's a very weird prospect because of, the lack of power and everything. But what's your kind of outlook on him moving forward? And do you think there's a real role where he's anything more than, a bench player in the big leagues for him?
I think it's going to depend on how consistently he can make solid contact. And the approach stuff is insane. Like, he's one of those guys. It's very funny watching him with the challenge system, because I'm pretty sure he's not gotten a challenge wrong this year when I've seen him. Like, and usually, it'll be sometimes a guy will challenge like 2-0 and you're like, what are you doing? And then you see it's Chase Mydroth, you're like, oh no, this is fine. This is obviously going to work, because if you get it right, you get to keep it. And his approach metrics are that good that if he can just get the impact ability up a little bit, and whether that be, maybe being, up in the majors, better travel conditions, more access to, weight rooms, whatever, training in the off season, just if he can get that hard hit up a little bit, I'm just slightly concerned that he's going to get up and guys are going to be like, okay, you're going to slap singles, like the Nick Madrigal effect. That's the kind of the concern. But if he can show, at the very least, I think he could be a utility guy. And it's just the question of whether he can get above that is going to come down to how often he can make solid contact and how much impact he shows. Because it's just hard in this day and age to be a everyday player if you're hitting, 5 to 10 home runs. There just aren't a lot of teams, even those second division ones, that are running guys like that out there. Especially when you're probably not a shortstop, you're more like a second baseman. You want to get more offense from that position. So I think that's what it's going to come down to, is can he, bulk up enough to be, without sacrificing of the contact skills, to get to, enough power to be like a 10 to 12 home run guy.
Coley?
No, I mean, when I was thinking about Juan Soto's name came up, and then we went into the Anthony Meyer discussion. It's important to remember, this isn't, I realize while I'm thinking it's going to sound like a shot. This isn't. Victor Robles, who is having quite a month right now, was forever ranked ahead of Juan Soto in the Nationals farm system. What a miss. Like, no matter how much you think you got these guys figured out, you just don't. You just do not.
Well, and that's the snapshot in time thing is the key there, right? Because Soto was like Betts, where he took off so damn quick when he figured it out that the rankings never caught up. And that's why what we're able to do on this system, that I'll say it doesn't really exist for other teams, is that we can focus on this system and catch up to that in real time and reflect it on our site in a way that, especially like, look at it now. The draft is in July. National outlets have to spend 2 months focusing on that in the middle of the season, and that runs right up to the trade deadline. So you see these trade deadline rankings that don't make any sense because the people making them haven't had a chance to update them yet because the draft was literally a week ago, And so that's part of why you do have to kind of stay on top of it, and that's why these sites don't rely on their preseason rankings anymore, because you can't. I saw him hit the farthest ball I've ever seen hit in Woodbridge, Virginia, at a park that doesn't even have a team anymore. That the ball was still rising when it was hitting the tree line beyond the fence, and I'm not joking. I mentioned that to someone once, and they remembered that home run. there are some guys that are like that are special, and they're not always going to necessarily be number one in the rankings the whole time because they just figure it out that quick. That's what makes us fun.
Yeah, we talked to so many other fan bases through what we do, and I'm always like, oh, do you guys have a Sox Prospects? There's not another team out there who has anything fucking close. I don't know if you guys know anybody through your trades that's doing it even remotely that, but we couldn't be more thankful for the hours you guys grind.
I've told the story when I was in high school. I legit, young, sitting, on Sox Prospects, reading the forums, doing all that. I just assumed if you just typed in like Pirates Prospects, like you were going to get, the same website, just black and yellow coloring and everything. And then it was a real wake up at the time to realize, oh no, nobody has it as good as us.
So wait, is it our fault that you're here then? Because you didn't pay attention in high school?
Basically, this is why I ended up here.
Jared.
It's real.
Come
on.
Sorry.
It's 100% true.
Who knows what I could have been.
Tyler is an idiot, but he knows his
He's
baseball.
at Harvard because of us.
Right, but
That's
he
what
knows
we're
his
going with.
baseball. So that's why I remember reading Sox Prospects in high school, and I appreciate the fact that it looks exactly the same now as it did back then. Like the website design has not changed once, and I know that in this world where things change, and I hate change, I know I can go to Sox Prospects and it's going to take me back to that moment in time with the kid from high school that wore the baggy Red Sox shirt and the Red Sox belt buckle with the Red Sox lanyard hanging out of his pocket, would sit in computer class and scroll who the top prospects were on SoxProspects.com.
Who was on NESN like the rest of us.
Yeah. Like it is, it's very much appreciated. That's right.
Get that.
We appreciate everything that you guys do for Red Sox fans and for us personally, and like what we do on the podcast. I mean, you make us sound much smarter than we actually are.
It's that's why we do things like travel across town to be on the 10. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Just to pay it back.
Gotta make the sacrifices.
I know I said it was going to be 45 minutes, but I was like, I got to make it worth it for Ian. Like if you're going to up and move somewhere else just to relocate to do this show, then we got to at least do a classic 2 hours.
It's a clean 45.
I think the discussion we've had tonight is a nice distraction from what's been going on with the Red Sox lately. It's been a tough weekend, so it's nice to focus on the positives.
Thanks.
Yeah, sounds like it got worse during this conversation. People are sounds like some news broke while we were having this conversation. Jake, how long are we at right now?
We're at 146.
Oh, hell yeah. So we just, I told you 45 minutes.
Beautiful.
We're at 46.
Yeah.
And in the hour. Yeah, we threw on the hour tax.
Thanks,
but you guys enjoy doing your podcast. You can download the Sox Prospects podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Obviously, SoxProspects.com. You have already been there and done that. But be sure to check out their newest episode because it's a celebration today. We're talking about the big three getting promoted to Worcester together. I know the series against Houston sucked, but it should be a happy day if you are looking towards the future of Red Sox baseball. So Ian Cundall, Chris Hatfield, thank you so much for taking the time, fellas.
Thank you for having us on.
We'll talk to you in
let's
9
not
years.
let's not go 9 years in between appearances next time, huh?
I've never been on, so this was
true.
my first time. Yeah.
There you go.
That feels like a you problem. I don't think Chris was like, "Hey, can I come on the 10?" And you were like, "Fuck you, dude." You issue.
I'll have my wife cook up some pancakes for all of us next time, not just me.
Let's go.
We'll do it like you guys do Jim Callis and Alex Spear. We should have like a set time every single year where we run it back.
Yeah, I'm down. Every August 11th, Sox Prospects Day.
Love it.
See you guys.
Deuces.
All right, big thanks to the Sox Prospect guys. Chris Hatfield, Ian Cundall. Hell of a job by them. We kept them for over an hour more than we told them we were going to do that. That's bad podcast etiquette, honestly. Like we shouldn't have done that.
Wait.
They were having fun. I think they enjoyed it.
They were having no. They were definitely having fun. We didn't keep them against their will. They wanted to be here. Listen, I wanted them to be here. It's been a long time since Chris has been on. Like I said, his first and only appearance on Section 10 was Pete's Mom's Basement special. It was a phoner, and it was to break down the prospects that had been dealt in the Craig Kimbrell trade. Tyler Milliken was still working at Jordan's Furniture at this time. That's how long ago Chris had gone in between, and Ian had yet to make his Section 10 debut. So
when I drove home that night with my mother, unfortunately, I listened to their live reaction of the trade. Ian, Chris breaking it down. They would do the emergency pods. They still do. That's what I listened to as we went to Five Guys on the way home.
Sick story, dude.
Fuck you.
So,
you're not even gonna act like you miss me. Really? Quite dickish.
Oh, I forgot that you weren't here on the last
Even
one.
worse.
Much worse.
I forgot. I mean, we haven't. It's been like Tyler. The attendance has been spotty. Like we haven't had. No, not for you. I'm saying like Steve's not here tonight. I don't know where the fuck he is. Like at least you had a legitimate excuse. Steve was just like can't be there. I don't know where Steve is. You had a very legitimate excuse, Tyler. And I didn't want to like put your business out there. I was like, I really hope people don't give Tyler shit for not being here. It's a very legitimate excuse, and we're happy to see your face.
Yes, and thank you to everyone who reached out. It's been a rough couple days, but hopefully we're trending in the right direction at this point. And I will be here through the rest of the season because it eats me alive when I'm not on the pod. So yeah, I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to talk Sox.
I am happy to be here. Not happy to talk Sox.
Yeah, it's actually gotten worse. Like we mentioned,
the rest of the podcast is going to suck. If you don't want to listen, we understand. Like, listen, nothing good. The only good thing that's going to happen for the rest of this podcast, and I'm still actually pissed. I made 3 songs. for this podcast. Told my co-host about it. No one gave a fuck. No one gave a flying fuck that I did this. You heard the Down on the Farm theme song earlier. I have a Weather Look Ahead song that's is a legitimate good song.
Did you sing on this one?
No. And then I have a Stop and Shop Look Ahead song as well. And that's tremendous too.
But I can't use tremendous. I enjoyed.
Thank you. The next 2 are way better.
Okay, well, I'll be the judge.
The next 2 are way better. But like the rest of this podcast is going to be talking about the Red Sox getting swept and Jarren Duran dropping a hard F at home plate today.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that you got an hour and 45 minutes of the Sox Prospect guys and looking towards the future, but the present right now is not a happy place. No, it's not we're not having a good time right now. But Tyler, where do you want to start? Would you want to talk about the gay slur or the series?
Let's go with the slur because that should take precedent here because that's a very important issue beyond the game.
That's the correct call. Great call. Section 10 stands with the 162 gays.
Mm-hmm.
We love you guys. And there's just no place for that language. There's just no place for that. And, don't be an idiot. I've said this. Sometimes it's a term of endearment with Duran when I call him a meathead. But in this particular instance, there's not we're not going to excuse it by being like, oh, he's just a meathead. No, that was a fucking dumb thing to say. That was a dumb thing to say. Do I believe that Jarren Duran has hate in his heart for the gay community? No. I think he's just that's just in the dumb meathead lexicon, but should have been erased a long time ago. It's just a fucking idiot. The word is disappointed. I think we can all agree that it's man, what a great year for Jarren Duran. And it still is offensively, defensively from a baseball standpoint. But now there's a little bit of a stain on it because of that. It's really wish you didn't fucking say that. It's just disappointing. That's all.
He puts a lot of people in a tough position that have, all year long said, be like Jarren Duran. Follow in his footsteps, whether you're a young player or you're anyone trying to play baseball that's a child or growing up, you want to be. And it's even tougher timing considering he got the Heart and Hustle Award today, out there in front of Fenway and everything. But I do think there is a history here now with Duran of him going back and forth with fans. Did it in KC less than a week ago, told a fan to shut up, bitch. We remember the actual KC incident when everything was going really bad in 2022. But hopefully he just treats this as a learning experience. Reading the apology, it seems sincere. He didn't dodge it. He didn't try to talk around it in any capacity. He just said, hey, I was wrong. I fucked up. That's the starting point. And now it's up to him to prove that, the apology is how he actually feels and that he's going to be a different person moving forward.
Well, I also would like to think that no one is going to be harder on Jarren Duran about this than him. He's probably furious with himself that he let his emotions get the best of him and said that. Like, there's just no excuse for it. And he knows that. I don't think he's going to sit here tonight and be like, yeah, well, whatever. It is what it is. Like, I don't think that that's his attitude. He's probably like, you fucking idiot. Like, he's probably motherfucking himself as we speak. That news, like, I didn't catch it during the game. But that story came across the timeline as we were doing the interview with the Sox Prospect guys. And it took a second to like do a double take. I'm like, oh, fuck. Why?
Well, that's
why.
That's also where I feel like we're giving a little too much credit. We have seen him go back and forth with the fans. It hasn't been at home plate, so we haven't heard it. Last time it was bitch. Only like LeBron has a problem. The Red Sox owner has a problem with the word bitch. But this statement did come out 6 hours after the game ended. Like, it wasn't an immediate apology.
No.
Was it a reaction that they knew was about to blow up all over social media? Because I didn't see it blowing up on social media.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't see like a Twitter video during the game. Like, I don't know that like anyone caught it in real time. I didn't see like a viral clip of like, did Jarren Duran just say what I think he said? I didn't see that. So I don't know where. It was almost like the video of it came out after the apology. I don't know.
Sure,
like,
someone went back and got it after the apology came out. But it is a little weird if you know you fucked up so royally. What was the wait? Was the wait like, did we get away with it?
Yeah, I don't know.
They claim they spoke to him directly after the game in the statement. So did someone come up to the Red Sox and say, hey, we picked it up.
We heard this on the mic. Yeah, like someone's going to find this. So like, you fucking apologize now. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that like it needs to be some sort of elongated conversation about, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to add to it other than like, yeah, I'm fucking disappointed. Like, yeah, like that really sucks that's going to be like a mark on an otherwise amazing season. But people are going to point to that. Like that's going to be something that like he gets for, like, he better be now like prepared. Cause that's going to get thrown back at him. Probably like he's going to have to wear that for a while.
It'll be a chirp out in the outfield. Like, that's what
we've seen him respond emotionally to fans in the outfield. So he's probably going to get that. And he's probably going to get that for a long time now. So,
yeah, this is disappointing. Is like, I don't know, it feels like too soft of a word for it. It's like, it's not like it's like, oh, you got to get rid of this guy. You know what I mean? That's not the reaction either, but disappointing feels too light as well. And that's where it's like, not the same at all. But when people get mad at Bayo for just being frustrated, it's like, I don't get too upset about this because he's just getting mad at himself. Duran, when he gets mad, takes it out on other people. Like, that's something he's done, whether or not it's funny when he calls someone a bitch or not. Like, we know he will direct it towards other people. And this time it was like, he's I think for sure missing a game, at least one, if not two.
Yeah. I think it's disappointing in the sense where we, not just the podcast, but like the Red Sox community, the team, we've put him on this pedestal this year.
Sure.
And for the most part, he's deserved it. Mm-hmm. Like when you are playing the way that he's been playing, and then you have the personal story of the mental health stuff where he's battled back from these personal demons and we thought had matured. Like that was part of this redemption. It wasn't just, oh, I'm better at baseball than I was before. It's not that I've overcome these mental demons. It's that I used to do really immature shit, but now I've gone from the rookie on the team to somewhat of a veteran and a leader on this team. So that's where, like, I don't know what the synonym is or like the higher word for disappointment. Like, I feel let down by it because it's like if you're just another guy on the team, then it's like, okay, like what a fucking idiot. But when you have the responsibility of team leader, which his teammates look at him that way, I think like the team looks at him that way. That's where there's the extra layer of disappointment. You have greater expectations. You have more responsibilities. You're held to a higher standard. That's where, like, what word would you use, Coley? Because I don't want to.
No, I agree. I
don't want to like undermine not have enough.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't think just like, I think his talent has to play a factor, because when they saw, we talked about it before we started recording, but when Dermody came in with this kind of background, people were like, yeah, just fucking, why even attach yourself to this guy? But the talent does play a factor, whether or not people want to admit it or not. But I think right now I'm still trying to figure out like what took the 5 hours, because you're right, like we started that interview with the Sox Prospect guys at like 8:15 or whatever, and that Castillo tweeted it out at let's see, I did so many tweets about this, which it deserves, but it was like an hour ago. Yeah, 10 was the first one that went out. So it's like in the middle of that, we see it as we're wrapping up. Like we're talking like, do we need to put out a statement as a show or anything like that? Obviously, people know we're not going to avoid something like this. But for me, it's like, what did the Red Sox wait for? Because I get it, like as much as we want to be disappointed in Duran, I'm looking at the team right now. Like I feel like they thought they got away with it for a few hours. That's how it feels to me.
So I'm like struggling with what to do on Twitter, because I don't want people to be like, oh, like they're covering for him, they're being silent. It's like, no, I just feel like a conversation topic like this, when it's serious, deserves full context and tone. So that's why, like, if anyone comes to me and says like, you guys didn't say anything, it's like, well, we talked about it on the podcast. Like, that's not ducking it. That's not hiding from it. It's just more like tone is important and full context is important. Like what you have to say about it, or what I have to say about it personally. I feel like you can't just like say that in a tweet, because then it just comes like everyone's kind of like saying the same thing.
It's a terrible website for that kind of discourse. Like it's just, I've seen people talk about it, and even some of the replies to Teel were like, you should have buried this to protect him. It's like, how brain dead do you have to be?
Yeah.
Like how
I do know there were people in the moment. I got one tweet and I was just going through, and someone said, did you hear what he said? I didn't think anything of it, right? I was like, oh, you heard a random clip, or maybe he made a joke, or who knows, the ump said something to him or anything like that. So there were a couple people that caught it. But I think if the team felt the need to address it immediately, like Coley said, it feels weird that you addressed it internally, and then, it's 9 p.m. when you actually start sending out a statement to reporters or whatever it may be. Wouldn't that have come directly after the game, or even Cora, coming out and kind of speaking on it, or were they trying to get all the facts? It does feel like that timeline's a little bit weird there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
bad.
I feel like we
our official statement, bad.
Yeah. Don't say shit like that.
No.
Don't say shit like that. Like, no, I don't think that like he has hate in his heart towards the gay community. I think he's an idiot. And he said a dumb thing that he never should have said. Like, shouldn't be in the vocabulary. Like, shouldn't be something where in the heat of the moment that's on the tip of your tongue. Like, that shouldn't be a thing.
It only fuels how people view Boston, this area. Obviously, even the player on the teams, you talk about how, so many black players talk about their experience here. Obviously, this is another group getting hated on, but we know, some of the characteristics that get assigned to this area from other fan bases. You just added more fuel to that fire that will carry whenever someone wants to bring that topic up, which seemingly comes up, multiple times every single year.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like I can't like sit on this fucking mountain of morality. Like growing up in middle school, elementary school, high school, like you hear that word thousands of times. But then as you get older, you understand the meaning of it. Whereas when you're a kid on the playground, it's like it's just an insult to try and hurt people's feelings or whatever. But then like when you get older, you're like, oh, this has like, there's a history behind this word. And like, there's a community that is very hurt by this word. So you get older, you mature, and you stop using the word. Like, that's it. like he's far too old to still be using that word. Not to excuse little kids from using it, but like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I didn't hear it thousands of times, like in middle school and high school. Like, that's just, but you grow up, you fucking mature, and you don't say shit like that.
It's one of those things too. Like I remember Tim Hardaway's senior was like the first athlete to really like, I don't want to say get criticized, but face like severe backlash for saying it. And a part of the story that never came out really, at least from what I've read through Bomani Jones, was like he's done a lot to, it's not like Papa John being like, I had to like rehab not saying the N-word. Like, it's not like that at all. But he like legitimately embedded himself with the LGBTQ community to learn about the history of it and how hurtful it was and stuff like that. And it's that part of the story gets lost. But what Tim Hardaway Sr. did was years later, he like during a live stream, not a live stream, but he was like a broadcaster on something. He used the R word. So it was like certain people just will never get it. You know what I mean? Like certain people won't click. I hope that's not the case for Duran, but I'm not going to give him credit for shit he hasn't earned either.
Yeah.
It was a couple years ago, Tom Brenneman, he lost his career in baseball. I know he's doing, I think, play-by-play for college football or something like that
BC.
now. But like, yeah, there you go. Like that cost that dude his entire career in that sense.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Be better. Be smarter. And grow up a little bit. That's all.
Do you think they were like, we got away with it, and then they turned around and they saw like 17 Netflix cameras and they were like, oh
God. Jeez. Yeah, like I wonder how Netflix is going to cover that. Like you can't just gloss over that, I guess. I don't know. Who fucking knows with, the thousands of hours of footage that they're going to have if that makes the cut. But, that conversation, like, and it's, people are going to talk about it. Like it's in the news cycle right now. And things like this would eventually blow over. But if it's forever documented on a Netflix series, that's 225 million subscribers. That's not good for him.
No. And it's also Sunday night too. Like Friday's known as the news dump day. Sunday night's right up there with Friday afternoon. So this will get more life in the morning, and then we'll see where it goes. But bad. Again, official statement. Bad.
Yeah, official statement. Bad. Don't say shit like that. Be better. Anyways, Red Sox got swept by the Astros. Also bad. Section 10 statement on that series was bad. Cole?
Twice. Somebody has said he's coming back. Twice. They've been promptly swept.
This is mean.
I agree. You should stop fucking doing it, Tyler.
Stop it. The guy is working his ass off. We're speaking about Trevor Story to make it back to this team. And he's doing something basically nobody ever thought he'd even have a chance at. Can we at least respect that? When, there was a fair crowd of people a year ago when he was taking his time on that rehab assignment that said, this guy doesn't care. He's, he'll take all the time in the world before he comes back, before he was the worst hitter in baseball down the stretch. I can give him credit for pushing as much as he is, because you can tell he wants to be part of it. It's a fair conversation whether it's worth it for the Red Sox, in their sense, whether they're going to be a better team with or without him.
We know that answer.
I just don't know where they put him.
Got to play him at shortstop or he's not worth anything.
They've got him right there, assistant coach. He sits right next
Dude,
to Cora.
He sits next to Cora every fucking game. It's kind of crazy. Like, I thought at first I was like maybe making it up in my head. No, he is like the actual bench coach. No disrespect to Ramon Vasquez. Like when Pedroia was hurt in 2018, he'd even sit next to Cora this much. Like Trevor Story's, that is his seat and everybody knows it.
Pedroia was out there fixing pitchers. Like, that's what Pedroia was doing. We could use a Pedroia right now.
That's true. Fixed Eddie, fixed Price.
Story he can't recognize pitches to begin with, so he's certainly not about to start helping him.
Yeah.
I do think if you have the Story conversation, where it gets uncomfortable is I don't think he should be guaranteed anything, but they are going to guarantee him something because of the money he's making and his leadership role on the team. But is there a way where you kind of go about this? And we've talked about their struggles against left-handed pitching. You go back to 2022, say what you will, he had an 850 OPS against left-handed pitching. So, he can hit them. How consistently, it's probably because he's not seeing a ton of breaking stuff that gets him where he needs to go. But if you get him at shortstop and he plays the defense he has so far, even just as a member of the Red Sox at shortstop, that is an elite glove there for an infield that has struggled defensively at times. You'd move Ceddanne Rafaela over to second base at that point. Is that getting a little wonky? For sure, but they were willing to play him there down the stretch last year, in certain spots. Then you're most likely pushing, David Hamilton to the bench, and that's where things get a little weird. But Story can go get you a bag.
My question, I don't hate him as a pinch runner, but my question is with the injury, it was his right shoulder, right? Because he was diving to his right.
Yeah.
So is he even going to be able to play the field? Because all I've heard them say is he's taking batting practice.
Yeah, so apparently he's been fine taking grounders, as we remember in Colorado. So he's okay there. The thing that stuck out to me, though, is he hasn't been like sliding or doing anything like that. Sure. That's for me, like when you're getting down there and you're like getting, landing on that shoulder, what is that going to feel like in that moment? So that's where I'd kind of take a step back and I'd say, well, all right, let's see how far along he gets in this process. But Craig Breslow today doubled down. He's like, basically, I'd be surprised at this point if we don't see him. Core kind of saying we expect him to be part of this. I think that's where you're going. And look, David Hamilton, the last week, since he got those days off and they reworked his mechanics, he's hitting. And that would really complicate this conversation for me. But if he's the guy he's been the last 2 months where it's barely a 600 OPS, then I guess you can sit there and say, well, Trevor Story can give you a 600 OPS.
No doubt. No doubt.
If anyone's built for it, it's him.
But Shohei's doing the thing now. He's only sliding feet first, right?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, so obviously Shohei's not playing the field. So that's where it's like my thing is he is a really, really good defender. I'm not here to say anything about that. What if he gets another ball like the one he got hit? Does he have he's so ready to go get that ball. And we saw it with Uke, and Pedroia, to their detriment, they're going to go after every ball. Does he have the wherewithal to be like, I'm hurt, I'm going to have to let some of these go, even though I know healthy I can get them?
Do you look at it and you hope he wouldn't go for it to keep himself healthy? Or do you look at it and say that hesitation is going to cost him at some point?
No, I think at this point, both with the injury, with his, right now, realistically, who's had a worse first 3 years with the Red Sox? There's only one name that comes to mind, and it's John Lackey. No one else have we seen have a worse 3 years. Obviously, at this contract level, not some fucking guy, end of the bench guy, but Lackey's first 3 years were who's buddy on the Nats? Patrick Corbin, and then he was out for the season. That was his first 3 seasons. And then he had 13, which was remarkable, truly a miracle. I haven't seen anyone do that. Can Story do that? Because right now, would I rather him get a ball in the hole that could force possibly re-hurt himself, and now he misses next year? That was the whole excitement about this year, was he had a healthy offseason. That right now has to be priority over a game in September, especially if the team's going to be playing like this without him.
Yeah, I do look at that, and I'm like, I felt like if the organization was sitting there and you kind of looked at all the pieces you had, did you really feel like you had to kind of give him the opportunity, or did he just force their hand and he keeps pushing along? Because they say, hey, we set these kind of benchmarks for him and he's blowing by them. What terrifies me is we find out, September 10th, he re-injures himself. It's going to be a weird thing over the offseason. Something went wrong, and it was like, you still owe this guy so much money over the next couple years. But at the same time, is this a rallying call for everybody? Where Trevor Story, still a very important leader in that clubhouse, as we've heard everybody say a million times, do they all kind of get around him and say, hey, this is our, he's coming back. This is a boost we're going to get down the stretch, like Chris Sale in certain ways. Let's ride with it. I don't know. But I will say, if David Hamilton looks like he has prior to this week, I really don't see where you're hurting yourself, at least giving him an opportunity. I would just sit there and say, dude, if you go out there and you look awful, then unfortunately, you might get embarrassed a little bit and you're going to get pulled out. I just don't think they'll do that ultimately.
I think the only reason to play him, reason,
showcase that he's healthy so that they can try to trade him.
Correct. That's it. Because if right now you're telling me for the future of the Red Sox, who would I rather seek it at bats? Trevor Story or Vaughn Grissom? It's not a conversation for me. It's Vaughn Grissom.
They've made the decision on Vaughn Grissom, though. You know what I mean? And I think
they activated him to option him so that he can get his at bats there every day. Because right now it's like, now that you're fighting for your playoff lives after this fucking sweep, you don't have the luxury of letting Vaughn Grissom figure it out at the big league level. Like, you go figure it out in Worcester, where he has not performed great either. Like, it's not like he's like crushing it in Worcester and you're like, the guy's banging on the door. How do you not call him up? It's like he's been very bad, actually. It's not even like he's been like mediocre. He's been very bad for Worcester too. So if we were out of it, fine. Let him figure it out here. Let him take his lumps or whatever. But like, there's still air in these lungs. I know that a lot of people have given up after this Astros series. I'm certainly not there. There's still a lot of season left. Things can happen, and it's not over. It's not great right now, but it's not over. It's a little premature to be giving up and being like, yeah, just play Trevor Story. Like, why? You can't tell me that's the best option. Like, it's same thing with Grissom.
Well, when you look at second base, right, and you kind of picture it right now, Ceddanne Rafaela at shortstop, who, I think people really get upset with this argument when you talk about what Rafaela's defense is at shortstop, because I think you can acknowledge, his ability to take over that position this year was such a major deal, while also saying, is he the best out there? I don't think he's, the center fielder he is out there, and the metrics hate him. They have him as one of the worst defensive shortstops in baseball. I wouldn't go that far either. I think you see him make the spectacular plays. Sometimes some of the routine ones get away, but that's expected. He's a guy who had barely played shortstop the last couple of years. But at second base, if your options are David Hamilton and Romy Gonzalez, is really a platoon. Say Nick Sogard goes down to keep Dom Smith on the roster to pick this whole picture together. It's a conversation because you're going to get elite defense from Trevor Story, and that might end up with Rafaela at second base. Very crucial with the state of the pitching staff and you needing to convert outs.
Why are you so sure it goes Rafaela to second and not center, especially if they're looking for right-handed bats?
I think it'd probably depend on the formation, on what days the outfield need to be where they're at. So like if you're facing a righty, for example, Wilyer Abreu, Jarren Duran, and Tyler O'Neill need to all be in the lineup along with Masataka Yoshida.
Right, that's what
against
I mean.
lefties. Maybe the conversation opts a little differently and you kind of configure this thing in your own way, but then you're taking out someone in Romy Gonzalez. Do you believe that Trevor Story is better against lefties? Gonzalez has looked pretty fucking good against lefties this year.
That's a brutal question.
But it's reality, unfortunately.
No, for sure. I mean, I'd much rather have Romy. I'd rather have Vaughn out there. For sure would rather have Romy.
I think that's where, like, if you're giving him these promises, which they're going to give him, he's going to get a level of credibility he just hasn't earned with the Red Sox yet. But they're going to say what he can do defensively for us. We look at it and say, that might be something that stops us from the defensive funks we've gone in and kind of gone through at different points this year. And maybe they believe he's the right-handed bat, at least against lefties, that they kind of have been lacking.
Teel just retweeted some 2023 Red Sox through 16 games, 61-55.
Same record.
2024 Red Sox, 61-55.
I was looking at that. The Red Sox today have roughly like a 33% chance of making the playoffs. At this time last year was 15.8 per Fangraphs. Just for context. I know it's the same record, but it is a different playoff picture.
No, but just watching them this series, and I don't think we need to go game by game because they lost them all. It didn't feel like, and this isn't analytical, but it didn't feel like one of the teams was a playoff team. Like those first two games, I think a playoff team wins 9 out of 10 times. Like that first game, you're up 3-1. Houck shoves. Whether or not they pulled Houck early, I was fine getting him out of there with how he's looked lately. The bullpen just immediately gives it up, and it was a lot of your new toys doing it.
Yeah, Luis Garcia sucks, Tyler. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to sit here. I can't argue. I will say for people I think who have been hard on Lucas Sims, it's a little bit unfair. When you look at the first 3 outings and what he did, absolutely pooped his pants in this first game. Today, like giving you 2 innings and he gets fucked because Brennan Bernardino can't pitch for the life of him anymore, and that's why he's sitting down in AAA. Yeah, Luis Garcia, man, I have no words. You have a 12 ERA. Like, what am I supposed to say to you? You suck right now.
Like, at least Garcia didn't cost like any real prospects, like all Rule 5 guys basically, and then was it Jefferson Vargas? Like one lottery ticket. Like, I'm okay with what was given up there for the type of guy you thought you were getting. Sims needs to be better. Like, I think
Sims got 1 fucking out.
Right, yeah, bad.
Yeah, in this first game.
Yeah, in the first game, he gave up 4 times as many hits as outs he recorded.
It was bad, but I think to his credit, I'd say even with today's outing, he's had one bad outing.
But this one specifically,
like he's a 7th inning arm. Like, you know, there is a level here. I'm not expecting him to be, you know, this 9th inning arm. That's ridiculous. And I know people say, well, look at all the meltdowns he had in Cincinnati. Yeah, that's just the, you know, kind of pitcher he is. He has a lot of Zach Kelly to him where he's either going to look fucking gross, and Zach Kelly has not looked gross lately, but it's either gross or not very good. I think overall where you start to really get upset about the trade deadline, those 7th inning arms, that's not what bothers you. I think where a lot of people are going to sit with regret is the James Paxton stuff from today.
But even Paxton looked fine. I didn't see the injury. It sounded like a freak injury. Is that correct?
He felt a pop. He's never had a calf injury before, as he framed it.
But it wasn't like just like an old guy running, right? Like it was just like he pushed off and felt a pop, something like that.
He tried to go to first to cover, and it exploded.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean that will happen. I didn't love that trade either, as I voiced on here in real time and on Twitter, but I wasn't like furious either. The Sims one I immediately thought was an overpay, and he needs to be a lot better. And that's like the Altuve at bat specifically bothered me because you throw strike one past him with a fastball and he spits on it, like right down the middle. At that point, you know what he's looking for. And to throw him anything resembling that, you're going to miss locations sometimes. That's going to happen. To even be throwing that pitch, that's on Bailey. Like that's where it's like the philosophy can be the philosophy, 1000%. What we like about Cora is he will go off book sometimes and be like, this is my feel in the moment. Is this a playoff game? Was this the World Series? No. But when you know Altuve's up there looking for one pitch and you give it to him repeatedly, that's bad process.
It's a fair take. I think on top of it, it's like Zach Kelly comes in the game and this bullpen, it's on a day of rest. You can't stop the bleeding. Like you just let as Cora calls it, it's a fast break offense for the Astros, and you let them just completely blow that game open. You don't even give your offense a chance to come back. That to me is where you like sit there and it's just, if you can't depend on Zach Kelly at this point, which you can't, you're in such a tough spot because in this
that
kind
note
of game,
about his FIP since June 1st is wild.
Yes, it's
over 7. It's over 7.
There's no excuse. He's giving up 3.5 home runs per 9. Like he's just getting the ball smoked. It's not even a question or any other way you can frame it. But if Zach Kelly isn't going to be able to stop the bleeding, like at that point, you're in a spot where your bullpen, at least until Slayton comes back, where if you can't trust them and you can't trust your rotation, good fucking luck to you, because you're going to have a hard time beating any competent team unless your offense is the best in baseball. And that's an unfair expectation for the entire group.
Yeah, it's insane expectation.
You're demanding them. Like, it's awesome that they had the highest OPS in baseball going into this series, but come on, they cannot do that every single night. You need to sneak some of these games. And so much of this team was built on the bullpen in a lot of ways. Got to be better. It's just that simple.
And would it kill Craig Breslow to maybe get a lefty reliever that is, I mean, like, I love Bernardino.
Sims is a reverse guy, reverse splits.
I love Bernardino, but what did O'Brien say on the broadcast say? That he's got like a ERA over 7 since his 20th appearance or whatever it is. And Boozer, I mean, he's been getting hard lately. Like,
I think Boozer's fine. I just don't.
Boozer's fine, but like at the same time, he's Bernardino. It's like it's two dudes that you never expected to be actual contributors on the big league roster that you kind of just lucked into and you've rode the wave for as long as you can. 2 guys with great stories, easy to root for both of them. But at the end of the day, like, were any of them proven big leaguers before the Red Sox gave them the keys? No. Like, when's the last time the Red Sox had a proven, legit big league lefty in their bullpen?
Yeah, it's been a bit. Richard Bleier, unfortunately, was like the closest thing. He was horrendous.
Yeah,
I do feel
a good one. When's the last time you had a good one?
Andrew Miller.
Yeah. And he was his best after he fucking left.
Yeah. Well, he did start showing stuff with you here, but he was a reclamation project for us.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. It's been a while. And I'm not even talking, like, you don't even, like, Andrew Miller is like probably the best left-handed reliever of this generation.
Sure.
So like, I don't even need the bar to be that high. I'm just talking like a dude that has been in the league and was intended to be a big league left-handed reliever that can get outs that you can depend on. Like, when's the last time you had somebody like that?
And also, Lucas Sims can have reverse splits. I'm not pitching him against Jordan. Like,
no, I'm not pitching.
I know that's
who is the lefty? Who is the lefty out of the pen in 18? They had fucking Pomeranz sitting out there like an asshole in the 18 inning game. He was the only pitcher that they didn't use in the 18 inning game.
Well, think about Sale coming out of the bullpen in like some of those spots. Like he kind of played that role.
He had to be, yeah.
I do feel like somewhat of a hypocrite to sit there and say, you know, Bernardino, I do think he deserves some leash since we were all sitting here shitting all over them when they didn't put him in the bullpen to start the year and what he gave you.
Not me. I was riding with Joe Ellie.
Yeah, you were. That's right. Hey, he's still sitting down there in AAA. He's healthy.
He's ready to come back.
That's why if I'm the Red Sox, Zach Penrod, let's go. I think Bailey Horn, you have the conversation as a fresh arm, and he looked pretty decent when he was up here. But if you want high quality stuff and just to see what happens, let Penrod loose in 2-inning spurts and see what he can do. Because he should be able to give you, 96, 97, and you're still...
Franklin Morales.
Oh, my God.
Yikes.
2013?
Yeah.
Is that Kemba?
No, it doesn't sound like Kemba. Kemba's usually upstairs at this point. That's Kingsley.
Yeah.
The fuck was I going to say before this dog started drinking?
Something about Penrod?
Yeah, I do think it's not a perfect comparison, but a couple years ago, the Red Sox were like, we're going to bring up Tristan Casas. Like, we don't need to sign Schwarber. We're going to bring him up end of April, early May. And I think Penrod became a guy that they identified pretty early on as like, ooh, this is going to be a nice little piece for us to have probably beginning of June. And then he gets a shin injury. Like, that's a freak injury. That's more what I was talking about when it came to the Paxton stuff. And that just... At that point, obviously, go make a trade. Other teams are waiting at that point. They're waiting for the deadline. They're waiting for the best possible deal. So it's tough. They kind of got fucked by a freak injury. Penrod, I think, would have been up if he doesn't get hurt, 3 weeks ago, probably?
Yeah, that feels right. And for people who have been, following what he's been doing down in AAA, he's been working now in 2-inning spurts. They're basically turning him into a reliever for the stretch run. It makes you sit there and miss Chris Murphy, who went down at the beginning of the year, but you've known all year he was gone.
Sure.
And also it makes you look at the Brandon Walter situation where they were willing to DFA him and kick him to the curb. I'm not saying I'm a Brandon Walter guy, but that's someone else who was a lefty guy that you could have thrown out there and maybe seen what he had left after his injury. It's just, you're in a rough spot out
Chris
there.
Murphy, I love Chris Murphy. Like, he was a stud for a little bit, but he got clipped, right, TJ?
Yeah, Tommy John, right in spring training.
Did
you have a problem, Jared, with how getting pulled? Because people were pissed when I was okay with it.
No, yeah, I mean, it depends. So it's one of those things where, are you okay with it, and why? The why has to make sense. The why for me is, if we're gonna sit here and piss and moan about managing these guys' innings, then that's why I'm okay with it. If you're like, oh, because I like the bullpen matchups. Like, I like when Alex Cora needs to get fucking 17 outs from his bullpen. Like, that's playing chess instead of checkers. Like, no, that's not why I was okay with it. I'm okay with it because this is how they're going to manage innings, then fine. Like, okay. Like, if you're not going to like skip a start or put them on the phantom IL for 10 days, whatever it is, then fine. Like, yeah, give him a breather. I mean, like, you take what you can get now from some of these fucking guys, and without going out there, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned. The 1 strikeout was a little weird.
That to me stuck out in a big way. It's like, you're not getting swing and misses. You've walked 3. Like, that's not
how many of the walks were in the first? Didn't he walk like 2 guys early though?
I believe so.
2 in the first. Yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit. I don't want to say misleading, but you look at 3 walks, and you're like, oh, he was wild. Like, I think 2 of them were in the first inning, but yeah, the 1 strikeout is, I guess, concerning, not to be dramatic, but if you still go fucking 6 innings, 1 earned run, then yeah, whatever, dude.
Very winnable game that you turn over to your bullpen. Again, like Tyler said, a rested bullpen.
They should be good enough.
They have to win that game.
You're sitting there and you can't draw it up any better in your head. Like, rested bullpen, Sims, Martin, Jansen, you shouldn't have to think twice about it. They just didn't do it. They didn't get the job done. And I think Cora said it that way. He's like, listen, sometimes you go about things the right way and they just still don't work out for you. That's how I look at that game from that night.
I was thinking about that a lot this series because, like, we're always debating, not necessarily us, but baseball fans, like, how important is the manager? And when Cora does pinch hit Romy in Kansas City and he hits one 700 feet, when he keeps Willie Urin off field, he gets all the deserved credit in the world. It's not me trying to question him, but he pulled a lot of those same levers this series between that game, and those were like standard levers. Those weren't crazy levers by any stretch. It was like, yeah, we hand it to our bullpen now, and we walk out of here with a 3-1 win. When's the last time they've won a game like that? Like, they're all high scoring, like 8-4, 8-2. Like, I don't know.
It's not sustainable.
No, like, you have to be able to win a game, like, especially if you are contemplating being a playoff team, that you're not going to win any of those games in a high scoring affair. So this was, like, to me, against a good Astros team, whether or not it's the dynasty Astros of the last couple of years, is irrelevant. It's still a good team. A 3-1, 3-2 win here would have been quite a statement for a team that hasn't won a game like that. And you pulled normal levers and they just don't work at all. I thought the same. Me and Jared were watching the end of Saturday's game, and it's like, yeah, he's bringing in Ref Snyder, who I think swung at like the first pitch and popped up. You know what I mean? Like, they pulled the right levers for that situation, and the guys just didn't come through at all.
Yeah, I'm not going to let the offense off the hook, even though, as I say, they can only carry you so far. You were 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position.
Oh,
that was Raffy at bat. Oh my fucking God. I love Raffy. He got pants in that at bat, and you do not see that very often. 3 pitches.
Like the Astros do it.
Good take. Exactly. The fastball up high. But to see Raffy kind of get destroyed like that, it's like, damn, that was your spot. You knew when you didn't come through there, it was going to cost you. Also, seeing Taylor Scott and Caleb Ort carve you up. Another reason, Dave Bush, spare me.
I mean, no. Tyler.
I'm sorry. I'm going to drop a spare me on that.
Spare me. I mean, the Astros were like his 9th organization after he left the Red Sox.
That's
like, it's not like he fucking left the Red Sox and immediately found success. Legitimately, the Astros might have been 5 organizations later. Like, legitimately.
No, he's been DFA'd a million times. What I will say, those teams didn't keep him for long. The Red Sox had him employed in 2021, 2022, and 2023. You had years working with the guy. You couldn't even make him serviceable. These other teams just said, hey, you're the last guy on the 40-man. We'll Johan Ramirez you. Get the fuck out in a couple weeks and we'll keep it moving. You spent years on this project and you couldn't figure it out.
He couldn't figure it out.
Both.
Sure. Dave Bush wasn't figuring a lot of people out.
No. Which one between Friday and Saturday was more frustrating for you guys? Because, I mean, Friday sucked, but I feel like Saturday was far more of like we should have probably won that baseball game.
Friday bothered me more personally.
Friday bothered me more, especially since we were like half paying attention Saturday.
Yeah, but also Friday was like,
you should have won that game. It was in your hands.
You had more guys up in like you couldn't have handpicked better spots. Like, you had Ref Snyder against a lefty with runners on. You had Raffy with the base. Like, that game should have been fucking 10-4 Red Sox.
For sure.
Saturday, I mean, I don't know. That was another one where you're kind of like knocking on the door at the end. Like, is this going to be one where they actually pull it off? If you don't give up if Zach Kelly doesn't give up that home run on Saturday, you're talking about a completely different fucking, I don't know. I'm not going
to. a rookie.
Here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to sit here after a sweep and be like, well, they should have taken 2 out of 3 because if you score more runs, then you win. Like, no, they got swept. Like, you know, they had their opportunities, but you have to tip your hat to the Astros. They just fucking played a way better. I mean, their stars did their thing. Like, Jordan, Bregman, like, they shoved it up your ass. Altuve. They, like, all the guys, like, they're not the Yankees. The Yankees are like, yeah, they got a couple guys that, you know, they can't let the Judge and Sotos of the world hurt you. The Astros got plenty of guys that can hurt you, and they all did. And then some.
If I told you coming into this game where you were going to have Josh Winkowski and Brad Keller eat 7 innings and they'd only give up 4 runs, you'd take that and run. You'd be like, all right, that gives the offense a chance to kind of do their thing. Spencer Arrighetti carved you up. 7 innings, 2 earned, 13 Ks.
13 Ks is insane. Well, how many strikeouts was it for the whole series? Like 40?
It was crazy. They were K'ing a ton. Cora said it after the game. He's like, that's not who we are usually.
I'm serious. Like they might have fucking punched out like north of 35 times in this series.
I mean, and to Tyler was talking about the bad Devers at bat. Romy had an awful at bat too. Like 3-1 swings at a ball that bounces off the plate, and it's like that just changed the game. Not that him getting a hit there, you win the game automatically, but it was just so deflating. So deflating.
What was it? Danny Jansen in the Saturday game, 3-1, swinging at a ball at his fucking eyes or whatever it was. After Devers had the leadoff double, it was like, that's a bad at bat. And he hit a homer. Shout out to him. He's doing what the Red Sox asked him to do. He's
way
hitting
more. Danny Jansen of Brooksgate, Jared. This is this account, Brooksgate.
40.
It's crazy.
That's a lot.
They struck out 40 fucking times in 96 at bats this weekend. As a team, they hit a $188 with a 563 OPS, a 37.4 strikeout percentage.
Did you see Kevin Burkhardt's good take?
What did Kevin Burkhardt say?
He said there needs to be a harsher penalty for strikeouts. Unbelievable.
Should count for 2 outs.
What would you do, Coley?
He didn't have an answer. He unprompted was just like, you basically get a ban strikeouts. Like he just know, like if you strike out, you get shot. In Kevin Burkhardt's MLB, it was just such a strong take that you could tell he just hates that no one cares if they strike out anymore, and he's just like, yeah, someone's gonna do something. Like he just couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand it at all. It's a great take.
If you strike out, you ever like have someone take the elastic and do like the slingshot into your skin?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's not even strong enough. You have to do something that, I mean, it hurts, but you can't do something that hurts someone so much that they can't like play the rest of the game.
No.
Tyler?
When I was in elementary school, I had this thing I would do sometimes where I don't know why I like the pain, but I would do it often. You know, like the gum that you pull, but it's not really gum and it electrocutes you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like try to hold on to it for as long as I could. I don't know why. It was like almost a challenge to myself, but I feel like doing that to someone after striking out would really kind of.
You want to electrocute people?
Shortly, not in a massive way, but you feel it in your fingertips and it wakes you up a little bit.
Well, then that's an unfair advantage. What if there's guys that respond positively to getting electrocuted?
I'd have to run a survey or some kind of test on this. I'm not sure it works that way.
Jake, what do you think should be the punishment for striking out besides 1 out?
Maybe you just got slimed and you got to play the rest of the game with slime on you.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Would be tough.
Yeah, it could get in your eyes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You get paddled?
Yeah, I don't hate paddling.
Yeah.
But Brookgate, to Tyler's point, for everyone traded at the deadline, he has the highest OPS. Dan Jan. Now he has the least amount of at-bats of everyone that got traded. I think
it's, what, 20 plate appearances?
20, yeah. But it's over 1,000 OPS in those 20 at-bats. Can't ask for much more from a guy who wasn't good for the Blue Jays this year.
Yeah, today's game also sucked. I mean, you lose Paxton 2 outs into the game. A bullpen day, basically after a bullpen day. Luckily, I mean, you kind of like doubled up the bulk yesterday between 2 guys. It wasn't your traditional bullpen game where you deploy 6+ relievers. But Paxton goes down 2 outs into this game. You can not hear, but you can read his mouth. Like he said, like, I felt something pop. So you're like, everyone immediately is like, Achilles.
Right.
It ends up being a calf strain, which still not good. It's definitely not good at all.
Isn't that like a precursor? And Cole, you can probably speak to it better than I could. Didn't Kevin Durant, like, it was a calf strain and then it turned into a blown out Achilles when they did imaging?
That I
sound
can't
right?
remember. I don't know, because Durant also said he heard the pop, and that was in Canada, and we know they don't have doctors, so I'm sure they didn't really know what they were looking at. But I don't remember the specifics about the KD one, but you can, with Porzingis, that was the fear. These playoffs was like, he's got this. If he starts overcompensating, it could be the Achilles. You just anything down there. I mean, that's where you've got to remember a lot of these athletes really are, no matter what sport they're playing, crazy athletes, because calf strain is supposed to be like a 2-month injury. And they constantly are like, yeah, it's a week, maybe 2 weeks. And they'll be out there. Like these guys do push through a lot.
And he described it like it was kind of scary. I think Middlebrooks was the one in the booth. He's like, yeah, it feels like someone kicked you. And then Paxton immediately after the game, it's like, felt like a ball went off my calf or someone came from behind and kicked me. And he was on crutches after the game. They said he could barely move around in the
Yeah, he's cooked. So who's going to replace him in the rotation? Because I mean, let's face it. It's August 11th. If we see him again, which it doesn't seem impossible, does not really seem super likely, but we've got to move on. You've listed here some options here, T-Dog. Cooper Criswell, who has COVID right now, but he should be back whenever, like a week. Dick Fitz, Quinn Priester, and Josh Winkowski. That's who we got.
I think Criswell is the obvious candidate. He'll be back on Friday. It sucks that he's going to have to step right into that spot, but you're basically where you were the whole first half, right? Like he's the fifth starter, and you kind of got to hope for the best here. Josh Winkowski and Richard Fitz. I'm not trying to be down on Richard Fitz. I think he is Josh Winkowski. You put him out there, he's going to have a real hard time missing bats. The K per 9's like 8. He had a really rough June and July. August has been a bit better, but I don't know. I just don't look at him as someone who's going to come in the stretch run and give you what you need here. And Quinn Priester, they have altered his entire arsenal. And I saw the line. He went 4 innings, gave up 3 earned in his last one. Brett Beatty took him deep. They said the outing was a little bit misleading. They're reworking everything for him. To me, I don't even think you can consider calling him up right now because he's such a project in the way you're reshaping him. Maybe 2-3 weeks from now he is, and that gives you the option to build a little depth with Criswell, but I don't see what the other option is there.
I mean, we know the option. It's Dick Mountain.
Yeah,
that is true.
The real one.
And you know first dibs.
Yes. He'd do anything.
Absolutely wants to still sleep in his own bed. If Dick Mountain he did his showcase in Waltham too, and I saw all the tweets from people. Oh, the Red Sox are going. It's like, yeah, no shit, it's down the street. Like,
insane not to go.
Crazy. How insulting would it be if the Red Sox are like, at the traffic at this hour?
Yeah, we're fine. We've got pitching like you wouldn't believe. We have too much.
Yeah,
if we're being honest, last year at the deadline, the Red Sox were one of the teams sniffing on Rich Hill. We know that.
I mean, no one is sitting here shocked that the Red Sox are going to end up with Rich Hill. I mean, like he's 44 years old now, but I mean,
at least
would love to see Dick Mountain make a triumphant return to this Red Sox rotation.
I'll say
3rd or 4th time.
4th, right?
4th, yeah.
That's crazy.
I do see a lot of people who tweet out like the last 2 months of him and where he was horrendous for the Padres. It was an 8.23 ERA, 6.77 FIP. Through 16 starts last season, it was a 4.45 ERA, 4.24 FIP. I'm not telling you I think he can give you that, but, and there's going to be a weird thing here. He apparently threw 100 pitches, but is he going to be someone you're willing to throw in a game like this upcoming week? I don't think so. So what? You have to get through at least 2 weeks here before he can pitch?
Why did they make... No, see, if he were 24, that'd be correct. Is he going to get hurt?
I'd be willing to say fuck it, but it is really like a wild move to be like, hey, off the streets, get the hell in there. What's he going to work on?
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. Like Andrew Bailey's going to tell him what to do. Andrew Bailey's not old. He's not going to listening to someone half his age. Like that's not what's going to happen here. You just get him in there. Like you're not expecting. How long did Jamie Moyer pitch? 45 years. Like that's what you're looking at right now. Late career right? Jamie Moyer.
Rich Hill signed as a free agent with the Red Sox June 30th, 2010. Signed as a free agent with the Red Sox December 16th, 2010. Signed as a free agent with the Red Sox December 13th, 2011. Signed as a free agent with the Red Sox February 1st, 2014.
Oh my God.
Signed as a free agent with the Red Sox March 26th, 2014. Was purchased by the Angels from the Red Sox in 2014. Was signed as a free agent by the Red Sox on August 14th of 2015. Was signed as a free agent with the Red Sox December 1st, 2021. And signed as a free agent by the Boston Red Sox on August 12th, 2024.
Jamie Moyer's last season was at 49.
Yeah, Rich Hill's in his prime.
Yeah, he's spring chicken.
I give him a 5-year deal. Like, I wouldn't even just sign him for the rest of the season.
Get the QO out here, baby.
Full 5, yeah.
Do you want me to call him right now?
Yes. Let's do this deal. Let's get it done.
Hill. It's way past his bedtime.
Let's negotiate a deal with Rich Hill. You think he'd answer?
Maybe.
He's going to break the news right now that he just signed.
And Tyler, like, one thing you really got to consider, San Diego's so far from his bed. Like,
I agree.
Crazy far.
Bed distance, underestimated.
This dude loves sleeping. And he just wants to be in his own bed. So,
should we give him, like, Astros Clemens deal? Like, you just play home games.
That's it. Like, Cooper Criswell on the road and Rich Hill at home.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of work together if you fuse them, like they were, planning to do a couple of years ago with like Tanner Houck and Chris Sale. It's like, all right, get Sweepy from that side. Hill is the lefty. Let's see what happens. There's worse ways to live.
Are there?
We're gonna find out.
Are there?
I don't want to throw Quinn Priester out there and he just gets his head kicked in because you don't have any other options.
No, I mean, and they also are clearly waiting for that date.
Agreed.
What, to get the extra year of control?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they should. Like, you can't have this year dictate, as weird as it sounds, like 2030. Like, you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, Bernardino, not good today. Again, he's gone. Demoted. Inning and a third, 4 hits, 4 earned. Gave up 2 bombs. That sucks. I mean, that's why everyone's like, man, like, it's bad when Jordan hit a home run off a lefty. It's like, buddy, Jordan fucking crushes lefties.
Okay, yeah. That was one thing with Cora in this series where it, like, putting the lefty in there multiple times, like, hey, we got you. He's hit his entire career better against lefties than righties. What was the move?
Destroys lefties. I mean, he hits righties too, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't play the matchups with Jordan. You pray to
best
God.
On best.
Yeah, you got your best. You put in Kenley, and you hope for the
best. You talk to the umps. It's like every time Jordan's in, Kenley's in. That's how we're doing this game.
Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, that's pretty much it for that fucking series.
Brother.
What, Dom Smith? What, dude?
So another thing I wanted to bitch about on Cora's end. The lefties in the lineup, it felt like if there was a day for like Danny Jansen to get in there and for you to stack righties, it was this one, because righties hit Hunter Brown much better than lefties do. Secondly, yes, we have to talk about Dom Smith.
No, we don't.
Come on.
He's a position player. He's got, 3 scoreless outings? Ooh.
Yep. And he tipped the cap. Everyone was smiling and laughing. Some people were mad that the Red Sox were having fun.
Smoked. Yeah, I was one of them.
Really? AC was having the time of his life. He was dying laughing.
You don't care. He's rich.
It's true.
Shout out Dom Smith. Got to be on the roster.
Yeah, I agree. What's the update on Casas? Are we still doing knives and shit?
Played today. The game, I believe, got cut early, but he has to make a decision, or the Red Sox do, by the 17th. That's when his rehab assignment ends. They already said he's not coming back on this homestand, so you're looking at Baltimore, which starts Thursday.
Okay. If you're looking to get tickets to the Woo Sox, do they got Woo Sox tickets on Game Time? They must, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that it gets the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The Big Three's debut is going to be on Tuesday, yeah?
Depends on what's happening with Marcelo Meyer and if he's ready to go following his IL stint.
He's hurt. Yeah. I guess we'll see. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when you choose a seat or you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats for you. They've got all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry today. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code SECTION10 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the promo code SECTION10, SECTION10 for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. Guaranteed.
Goalie.
11:19 p.m. Kristian. Joely Rodriguez has been good at Worcester. Wonder if the Red Sox give him another shot. People can't stop talking about Joely.
We're on to Zach Penrod.
Yeah, I'm good.
Give me both.
Nah.
No, I need booze. Don't. You want Joely over booze?
Nah, I don't even
It's
start
more enjoyable for me. Joely's got you were just talking about Dom Smith, all the smiles on his face. Have you ever seen Joely Rodriguez frown?
Well, he has to do something. He needs to serve a role. Dom Smith serves a role.
All right. No catch up. Obviously, we got swept. So
You're done.
Yeah, you're done for the catch up, Bregman. All right, is it time for another tune?
Hit it.
The debut of the Stop and Shop song. You ready for this?
Stop and shop, look ahead. Buying tangerines by the pound, by the pound, by the pound. Stop and shop, look ahead. Red Sox don't get addicted to the crown, crown, crown. Stop and shop, look ahead. Just tell me who's pitching this week, this week, this week. Stop and shop, look ahead. You already know Jake's got a sweet, got a sweet, got a sweet.
That's fire.
I got this already.
Who's spitting this? Who is this?
That was my dad.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's always rap?
He's been doing it for like a couple weeks, yeah.
He freestyled that or was that written?
That was freestyle.
Crushed it.
I mean,
one take?
Yeah, I was like, hey, we need a song for Stop Shop Look Ahead, and he did that into his iPhone.
He just wrote that shit real quick.
Yeah. Stop Shop Look Ahead. Brought to you by Stop and Shop. Head on down to Stop and Shop. Use the promo code Section10 to get 10 cents off your teenage Jarens. Did you hear the lyrics?
Oh yeah, Jake's got a sweep.
Yeah, so it was supposed to say Stop and Shop Look Ahead. Red Sox stomp your dick into the ground, but it says stomp your dick into the crown, which I kind of like better.
So when your dad was like freestyling this and doing the whole thing, it was a moment where he misspoke.
Stop and shop, look ahead. Buying tangerines by the pound, by the pound, by the pound. Stop and shop, look ahead. Red Sox don't get addicted to the crown, crown, crown. Stop and shop, look ahead. Just tell me who's pitching this week, this week, this week. Stop and shop, look ahead. You already know Jake's got a sweet, got a sweet, got a sweet. Let's take your win. I got this already.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can stomp their dicks into a crown.
Right into it.
I mean, I would hurt way more, I feel. Like if you stomp someone's dick into the ground, that's definitely going to hurt. But if you stomp someone's dick into a crown, now you're risking potential castration.
Definitely on the table.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
You'd have to work really hard to step on someone's dick on the pavement.
Yeah.
Continue.
We're playing the Rangers again?
Yeah.
Look at the rest of the month. Be thankful.
Brian Bayo versus Tyler Mahle. Cutter Crawford versus Jose Urethra. Tanner Houck versus Cody Bradford. Okay, Bayo's ERA still over 5. FIP is under 5, though. 460. Tyler Mahle, 0-1, a 180 ERA, a 120 whip, and a 3.6 strikeouts per 9. He has 1 start under his belt since returning from Tommy John this season. 5 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Not bad. Splitter can be good with his 50% whiff rate, but hitters were 3 for 4 with 3 singles against it in his debut. The Rangers lost. Cutter Crawford faced the Rangers on August 2nd, 5 1/3, 6 hits, 5 earned, 5 Ks, 4 home runs. I feel like that could be against anybody the last month. Urethra, 3-7, a 3.74 ERA, 132 whip, 5.9 strikeouts per 9. Has mostly been in the bullpen this season, but 19 appearances in there, but does have 8 starts, including 2 straight. As a starter, 8 starts, 4.31 ERA, 134 whip, 5.2 strikeouts per 9. In his last 2 starts, he's gone 8 innings, 14 hits, 9 earned runs, 3 walks, only 2 strikeouts, and 2 home runs. One of those was against the Red Sox. That was 4 innings, 8 hits, 7 earned, did not walk anyone, struck out 2, gave up a bomb. The Rangers are 3-5 when he starts. Cutter last time against the Rangers, also not good. 5 innings, 8 hits, 6 earned, 7 strikeouts, 2 bombs. Cody Bradford, 3-0, 3.96 ERA, 0.92 whip, 8.6 strikeouts per 9. In his 3rd start back after suffering a lower back strain and a stress fracture in his ribs in early April, they're working him back slowly. He threw 46 and 59 pitches in his two outings since his return. The return stats, 5 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 8 earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 3 bombs. He has the potential to be good. He was before the injury. It was a 1.40 ERA in 3 starts before that. Changeup is his main secondary pitch, 37% whiff rate on the year. The Rangers are 4-1 when he pitches this season. So that is Brian Bayo versus Tyler Mahle. That is Cutter Crawford versus Jose Urethra, and Tanner Houck versus Cody Bradford. Prediction time. Jake.
Yeah, I got a sweep, just like Jared's dad says in the song.
Yeah.
Feels like a must sweep here with vibes just being horrendous. Yeah, go out there and get a sweep.
Oh yeah. Tyler?
I think I'm going to be a little negative here. I do, unfortunately. I look at Brian Bayo last year in Texas, gave up 8 earned runs. It was a really low moment for him as everything kind of winded down. It was a day game, but we've seen that really doesn't matter for him anymore at this point. Cutter Crawford was making history against the Rangers less than a week ago, or just about a week ago now. So to see him have to go up against that lineup another time is something I don't exactly love. I do think Tanner hopefully has figured something out, even if it isn't missing bats to the degree he needs to. And I do think part of the plan against the Astros was to just go for weak contact, because Houck and Winkowski were extremely sinker heavy, more than they typically are. But yeah, I don't feel great about where this series is kind of going to go. I think the pitching continues to struggle really badly. And even with the refreshed bullpen, coming into today as they make a couple moves, I still think the overall group is pretty tired. And you're going to have guys who are, either making a debut, possibly like Penrod, or, freshly in the big leagues again.
Cool.
Yeah. And I mean, they wake up tomorrow and still deal with the aftermath of the Duran stuff too. So that'll
especially if he's not in the lineup.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be an added distraction to a team that doesn't seem like they have their eye on the ball to begin with after that series. Bradford just shoved it directly down our dick holes in Texas, like absolutely shoved. And we've had, it kind of reminds me of like Reed Detmers, like has 2 good starts all season, both against the Red Sox, and they were both like a week apart. So that one's a loss for certain. They should beat Urena. Who was the first game again? It was
Tyler Mahle versus Brian
Yeah,
Bayo.
Mahle. I ride with Bayo. We win those games, whether or not he gets the win or not. So I'm going to say 2 out of 3, but has to be the least confident I felt about that in some time.
I got 1 out of 3. I didn't want it to be this way, but I'm down right now. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
I think we're going to be sitting here at the end of the series and say, God, we need Tristan Casas back. Baltimore, it's going to be terrifying, but you hope you feel a little bit better about the team overall once he returns. Not going to help the pitching, though.
No, but at least you'll probably miss Gray Rod, and it'll be Suarez again, which I don't know that we can hit him much better either, but you will miss Grayson most likely. And poor Kenley. I mean, you talk about a guy who's itching to get into these games. He's warming up.
He's throwing 50 pitches in the bullpen over the weekend.
He's so ready to get into a game.
He goes until the final out.
I know. He believes. Like, he knows how up they should be. We need the rest of the team on Kenley's time.
You also get Pivetta back for that first game in Baltimore, which could be terrifying at the same time.
I guess we have no fucking idea what the weather is going to be in this series because of Steve. Tyler?
Oh, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to take a step back.
What?
Were you about to try and do the weather?
Oh, no. I would never try to step into Steve's role, but I remember the game was at Fenway and not on the road. And I was going to say if they were technically in a dome, we wouldn't have to worry about weather. But
so you were going to try and do the weather.
I was going to offer a suggestion of what the weather situation could have been, but after calculating inside of my brain and putting 2 and 2 together, I realized how stupid that would have sounded.
That's just a little tease. It's really good. It's fucking great.
I wonder where it goes from there.
Oh, man.
Classical. Mozart inspired.
It's a fucking banger of a song. It's very good.
Who are you commissioning for these things?
the music industry.
That was Ellen?
That was my mom.
Hi, Ellen.
I mean, those are just... It's a great song.
Why'd Section 10 go under? Jared just kept commissioning songs, and they kept getting more and more expensive.
Well, I mean, if we were gonna get hit with copyright claims or other people's music, then we just had to write our own music.
Sure, no, for sure.
Well, Tyler,
these songs weren't AI generated, were they?
No, this was Limp Bizkit did this.
I would be furious with AI generated songs.
Why?
Couldn't be more against it.
Why? What
AI
if you write
anything?
Well, I mean, obviously these aren't real bands that made these. Like, I wrote the lyrics and then I chose the genres.
And then your dad rapped them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want to play the weather song so bad. I'm not going to do it. I'll wait for Steve. Tyler, final thoughts?
Steve spoke very nicely about me last episode when I wasn't here, so I'll speak very nicely of him. I miss you, Steve. I can't wait to talk to you on the next episode. Also, those cat videos that are going around right now where they're sad and they're working really hard, and it's like the meow, 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 meow sound. I really like those. I'm really into those cat videos. If you see any more of them, send them to me. They fit the vibe.
I don't know what that is.
I'll send you one right now.
Is that a weird sex thing?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
you freak.
No. Yeah.
Check the DMs.
I will certainly not.
Hold on, Coley. I got
Stay
you.
away from me.
Coley, final thoughts?
Yeah, I want Tyler to stay away from me. That's my final thought.
In real life or
both?
Digitally?
Probably both.
Okay.
Jake's takes?
Steve just texted Jeremy and I right as you played the weather song, or the beginning of it. Just said, how'd it go? Unbelievable timing.
I mean, he could easily... What are you sending me? A sad cat hammering a nail? Oh,
it's so funny.
It's not.
I love these videos.
Gen Z is just...
This is AI.
Yeah, that's
You
AI.
just said you were against AI.
I'm into these ones.
That's not a real cat, you know.
This is how
No,
it's
that's
done.
definitely a real cat. Look at how sad the cat is.
Good.
All right. We'll be back Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Enjoy this series against the Rangers. I know I will. Woo. See you then. Thanks again to the Sox Prospect guys. Check out their podcast and soxprospects.com. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Buenas noches, amigos.